Chapter 251. Without a 100% victory, if Fang Yin wasn't on guard, Fang Yingying could knock him down and make him kneel. Confidence, martial arts, physical condition, environmental impact, desire for victory, and even changes in the weather could all affect the outcome of a match. Since ancient times, there had been many examples of big shots being played to death by small shots. Fang Yin knew that Chiba Keiru would bring his words to the Chiba army, and he also knew that the Chiba army would pay more attention to him in this battle. Fang Yin wouldn't mind doing something like throwing a stone into his ethereal state of mind 100 or 200 times. Chaoyin technology had been officially established, and Lu Chaoga was recruiting people everywhere, ready to put the new company on the right track as soon as possible. She had been engaged in the education industry abroad for many years, and after returning to China, she took over as the executive vice principal of Rosefinch High School. She could handle so many students and complicated human relations, so Fang Yin wasn't worried that she wouldn't be able to manage a company well. Fang Yin rarely got involved in Chaoyin Technologies matters, and he didn't even take a look at the company's opening. Although he held valuable shares in Chaoyin Technology, if he was willing to sell them now, the money he could get would be enough for him to live a carefree life. Of course, Fang Yin's shares couldn't be sold for the time being. Moreover, even if he sold them in the future, he could only sell them to Lu Chaoga or the Tianfang biological group controlled by the Qin family. Chaoyin Technology, which had the Rubik's Cube technology, couldn't let too many people in, and they couldn't let unfamiliar people in. Otherwise there would be a thrilling office struggle. Lu Chaoga had just brought the Rubik's Cube out from Longtu Group, and it was impossible for her new company to become a new battlefield. However, there were some things that Fang Yin couldn't ignore. It was Fang Yin's first time coming to Chaoyin Technology. According to the address Lu Chaoga provided, he found this not very beautiful but heavily guarded compound. The large stone at the entrance was engraved with the words, Chaoyin Technology in gold. Other than that, there was no sign. The big stone was also covered by branches, and the whole company looked very low-key. After registering and verifying his ID at the security booth, Fang Yin was led by a middle-aged woman to a small building in the courtyard. There were many guards in the small building. Not only were there many black-robed men patrolling around, but there were also countless cameras in the open and in the dark. Fang Yin sighed softly. It was quite stressful to work in such an environment. However, he also knew that the Rubik's Cube technology was of great importance. Everyone wanted it. If they couldn't do it in the open, they would snatch it in the dark. For the benefits that would make people jealous, they would do anything. He took the elevator to the 5th floor of the small building. Lu Chaoga was waiting in the office. The middle-aged woman left quietly, closing the door behind her. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yin and said, "Follow me." She turned a globe on the desk, and the bookcase behind the desk immediately opened to both sides. An iron door appeared in front of Fang Yin. Lu Chaoga opened the iron door and went in first. Fang Yin also stood in. There was a row of Arabic numerals on the wall, but Lu Chaoga pressed the letter P at the top. So, the bookcase closed automatically, the iron door closed in the middle, and the elevator began to slowly descend. Seeing Fang Yan's puzzled eyes, Lu Chaoga explained, "Those Arabic numerals are all traps. Whether you press 1 or 9, they will automatically alarm. Only P can reach the research room." "What is this place?" Fang Yin asked. The setup was a bit old and didn't seem to be new. In such a short time, it was difficult for Lu Chaoga to build such an extremely safe research room. This yard originally belonged to Huaqing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics. They built such a research room next to the school to study the latest aircraft parts. Later, when the University of Aeronautics and Astronautics moved, they had a more advanced and more hidden laboratory, so they were ready to sell this property. I communicated with them and used the money to buy this courtyard. "Is it safe?" Fang Yin asked worriedly. If he were to use something that had been used by others, it would be easy for his secrets to be leaked. "I've changed all their previous designs," Lu Chaoga said. "These are all newly added by me. They needed to enter from the underground entrance, and I sealed the entrance with alloy. No one could open it, not even myself." "What about this elevator?" "The elevator was original. Only the previous director knew about it. I couldn't bear to remove the setup of the elevator, so I installed the most advanced scent detector from Tianfang Biological Group." "Scent detector?" Fang Yin looked at Lu Chaoga with a puzzled expression. Everyone's body emits a unique scent. This scent is difficult to imitate and impossible to decipher. Moreover, the composition of this scent is quite complicated. The scent emitted when happy is different from when angry. Even if they kidnapped me, it would be useless. The computer recorded the scent on my body. Only when the scent was suitable would it send me to the place I wanted to go. If the scent wasn't right, then it would send you to a death row. The most important thing is that very few people know about the existence of this thing, Fang Yan said. Yes. Lu Chaoge nodded. Everyone will look for the location of the cameras and other secret devices. They have no idea that when the air conditioner is turned on, the scent on a person's body will be extracted and sent to be analyzed. Clang. As the two spoke, the elevator sent them to the mysterious underground. Fang Yan walked over and opened the iron gate. Lu Chaoge took the lead and led the way to a silver gate. His eyes swept over the electronic lock on the silver gate, and the silver gate immediately split into two crescent buds that opened to both sides. Only then did an advanced and busy underground research room appear in front of Fang Yan. More than a dozen researchers in white coats were sitting in front of computers, typing furiously on the keyboard. There were also some researchers walking around with thick folders in their arms. They seemed to be in a hurry and looked very busy. Lu Chaoge led Fang Yan straight inside. She didn't greet any staff along the way. She pushed open an office door and walked in. Fang Yan followed her into the room and closed the door behind him. There were already a few people in the room, including a dead man. Dean Lu. A bald man wearing glasses took the initiative to greet Lu Chaoge, but his eyes were staring at Fang Yan warily. "He is our collaborator," Lu Chaoge said. Zhao Xiqing's eyes flashed with surprise and he nodded to Fang Yan in a friendly manner. Zhao Xiqing, Deputy Dean of the Research Institute. Lu Chaoge introduced Zhao Xiqing to Fang Yan. Fang Yan shook hands with Zhao Xiqing and looked at the dead man in a white coat lying on his office chair as if he was fast asleep. He asked, "What's going on?" "He's dead," Zhao Xiqing said. "How did he die?" "I don't know." Zhao Xiqing shook his head. "When we found him this morning, he was already dead. At first, we thought he was under too much pressure from work or some other physical illness." "What about now?" Zhao Xiqing pointed to his chest and said, "We found that. It was a flower, a red flower. This flower looked very strange. It was shaped like a woman's sexy and seductive lips." "Lip flower?" Fang Yan whispered. "Why is there a lip flower here?" Fang Yan had seen the introduction of the lip flower in the book Flora. He knew that it mainly grew in the tropical rainforests of some countries in Central and South America. For example, Colombia, Costa Rica, Panama, and so on. How did it end up in Wuxia now? "Someone put it in his coat pocket," Lu Chaoge said. "They deliberately let us know that they killed him. They have the ability to do so." Fang Yan's face also became embarrassed. He had just walked through it once. He knew how strict the security in the courtyard of Chaoyan Technology was. It could be said that it was as difficult as ascending to heaven for outsiders to get here. However, in the deepest part of the research room, someone could come and go freely. After killing someone, they even put a small flower in his arms as a keepsake. This was a blatant threat. Lu Chaoge looked sadly at the man lying on the chair and said, "His name is Hu Jia. He is an engineer I invited from the new Academy of Sciences. He is mainly responsible for the application of Rubik's Cube technology in daily life. Because Hu Jia just came, I dare not give him the core technology of Rubik's Cube. So he is dead." "Where did he come from?" Fang Yan asked. "I don't know." Lu Chaoge shook her head. "Before you came, I went to the computer room to look at all the surveillance videos. I didn't find any suspicious people coming in. Is this person a ghost? So many surveillance cameras can't capture his figure?" Zhao Xiqing scolded angrily. "Dean Lu, this matter must be resolved as soon as possible. We can't hide it for too long. If other staff members find out, it will cause panic in the research room. At that time, no one will have the mood to stay and work." Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan and said, "I am going to call the police after you see it. Although I know there is no point in doing so. But after all, someone died in here." "Calling the police is not the first choice," Fang Yan said. "If the police come, the defense here will lose its meaning. The first thing we need to do now is to find the person who sent the flowers." "Where?" Zhao Xiqing asked eagerly. "I don't believe he is a ghost," Fang Yan said. "Since all the cameras can't capture his figure. Maybe he is still hiding in this research room and hasn't left." Everyone in the room sucked in a breath of cold air. The killer was still among them? He could cut off their heads at any time. Chapter 252. Are you sure? Lu Chaoge's face was also full of worry. Her company had just opened for business, but a murderer with a ghostly figure had sneaked in. How were they going to work properly? If news of this got out, all the busy staff in white coats outside would probably run away, wouldn't they? Smart people were afraid of death, and the people outside were all first-class smart people. Is he really still in the research institute? Seeing the fear in everyone's eyes, Fang Yen smiled and comforted them, saying, I don't know much and it's just a little suspicion. Maybe he's long gone. It would be better if he stayed in the research institute. Lu Chaoga had already recovered her calm and sharp state and said, if he's still in the research institute, then we'll keep him here forever. If he comes and runs away, then he'll be a big problem for us. What the director said makes sense. Zhao Xiqing nodded in agreement. Today they can kill Hu Jia, tomorrow they can sneak in and kill another Hu Jia. Every one of our engineers is a treasure, and losing one makes our heart bleed. What's worse is that we can't immediately recruit new people to replace Hu Jia's position. Engineers are not masons who can bring back a small group of people just by walking around the market. If we can get rid of him internally, it'll be a good thing. Fang Yen looked at Zhao Xiqing in surprise. This gentle guy actually had a hidden murderous intent in his chest. Zhao Xiqing grinned coldly and said, which new technology isn't coveted by countless people? Domestic and foreign, family and outsiders. I've seen these kinds of dirty things in the past. Fang Yen was too lazy to ask about Zhao Xiqing's background. He just looked at Lu Chaoga and said, how many people are in here? 21 researchers, 47 assistants, 69 security personnel. Lu Chaoga was very attentive to the research institute, and she was responsible for all the staff recruitment. Except for a group of people sent by the Qin family to fill out the team, the others were all recruited by her, so she was very familiar with the data. Should we find an excuse to call them in for a chat? Mr. Fang is also watching from the side? If we find a suspicious person, we'll take him down immediately? Zhao Xiqing asked. No. Fang Yen rejected the suggestion. Don't mess around. We mustn't fall into chaos here. The more chaotic it was, the more opportunities it would give him, an opportunity to do evil and also an opportunity to escape. Let's just maintain the status quo. Everyone is at their own job, and there will be people who do not fit in with the environment automatically appear in front of us. Lu Chaoga trusted Fang Yen very much. She said, I'll give you the control of this place. He then pointed to a dark-faced skinny man standing behind Fang Yen and said, he is Qining, the person in charge of security here. Qining? Fang Yan's gaze turned cold as he looked at Qining and asked, you're from the Qin clan? I used to be a member of Tianfang Biological Group, and now I'm a member of Chaoyan Research Institute, Qining said with an indifferent expression. This kid didn't want to expose too much and Fang Yen wouldn't force him. Plus, not everyone in the Qin family would know if Qin Tian was injured or how badly injured she was. That was something that could be kept a secret. Fang Yen looked at Hu Jia, who was lying on the chair, and said, let him lie here for the time being. Don't touch his body. Before the autopsy is carried out, no one knows if there's anything strange about the body. Hu Jia's matter will be kept a secret for the time being. All of you should return to your posts. Don't let them find anything unusual. Fang Yen took the lead to open the door and said, Qining, tell me about the Research Institute's protection measures. Qining turned to look at Lu Chaoga. In this courtyard he only listened to Lu Chaoga's orders. Cooperate fully, Lu Chaoga said. Thus Lu Chaoga returned to her office. The secretary made her favorite Longjing tea as usual. The head of the logistics department came to her office to report on work, and the two talked for a long time. When Zhao Xiqing went out, his face and neck were red. Those who knew him knew that he had quarreled with Hu Jia again. Hu Jia was the main person in charge of the Rubik's Cube technology research, and the two of them often quarreled because of different research directions. Everyone had long been used to it. It wasn't known if he was curious or worried about Fang Yen, but after Zhao Xiqing went out, he didn't return to his research room. Instead, he walked around the team of engineers outside, constantly going to some research stations to ask something, but his eyes would inadvertently drift in the direction of Fang Yen. Everyone else also returned to their respective positions. Hu Jia's office door was closed, and Qining even deliberately added a lock when he came out. He was afraid that someone would go in to report to Hu Jia and find that he was dead. Qining was indeed a member of the Qin family, and a relatively core member of the Qin family. Qin Tian made a phone call back, and then Lu Chaoga rushed to Huaqing Airport with the research materials of the Rubik's Cube technology. She took a private plane that was already parked there and flew to Yanjing. The person who brought the private plane to Huaqing to welcome Lu Chaoga was Qining. The mistress of the family personally met with Lu Chaoga, and the two didn't negotiate for a long time. Then, Qining was ordered to send Lu Chaoga back to Huaqing, and then led his people to take charge of the security of the Chaoyan Research Institute. One had to know that Qining used to be the security consultant of the Qin family. He was mainly responsible for the safety of the family head and mistress when they went out, greeting important businessmen and protecting visiting politicians. Of course, he wasn't the only person in charge. There were also a few old monsters who were inseparable from the family head and mistress. Later, when Miss Qini Tian came to Huaqing to study, an old monster followed her to Huaqing. When Qining first came over, he was still a little nervous, thinking that he had made some mistake and was kicked away by the mistress. Later, when he saw a large number of engineers and researchers sent by Tianfang Biological Group, which belonged to the Qin family, Qining knew the true purpose of the mistress sending him over. This place was very important and no mistakes were allowed. Therefore, Qining put in a lot of effort to arrange this courtyard into an impenetrable defense. However, something still happened to Chaoyan Technology, and it was the Chaoyan Research Institute, which was the core of the underground. This was a huge blow to Qining. Were the assassins outside already so powerful? Only Dean Liu has the chance to come down from the elevator in the office. Everyone else has to go through that door. Qining said, pointing to a closed silver passageway. However, it's impossible for outsiders to get in. To pass through that door, you have to go through many checkpoints. Not only are there advanced equipment checks, but there are also manual checks. Most of my brothers are also stationed there. They are all veterans and it's impossible for them to make such a big mistake. No one doesn't make mistakes, Fang Yen said with a smile. Some people do it intentionally and some do it unintentionally. I don't doubt your professionalism. After walking into the courtyard of Chaoyan Technology, I felt a lot of pressure. However, our eyes have blind spots and our brains also have blind spots. What we have to do now is to find those blind spots and fill in those loopholes. Qining looked at Fang Yen with puzzled eyes and said, "Who are you?" Fang Yen grinned and said, "Curious about me now? I asked you if you were a member of the Qin family just now, and you didn't seem to want to reveal your identity. There were too many people in the room just now and the Qin family is more low-key. The Qin family is more low-key?" Fang Yen thought of the scene when Qin Yitian appeared in the tea house in a Rolls-Royce Phantom with the old housekeeper. He really couldn't agree with what Qining said. Although his expression was so serious. "I am Qin Yitian's teacher," Fang Yen said. Qin Ying's eyes became more playful as he said, "What you said is not what a teacher should know. Teachers will not teach such knowledge to students." "My teacher is a bit special," Fang Yen said. From Qin Ying's reaction, it could be seen that he did not know the relationship between him and Qin Yitian. It seemed that the Qin family was still persistent in keeping this matter under wraps. This discovery made Fang Yen happy and disappointed. He was happy that the Qin family thought that he and Qin Yitian were just playing a game. He was disappointed that the Qin family did not put him in their eyes. Fang Yen walked very slowly. His ears were listening to Qin Ying's introduction of the entire research institute's protective measures, but his eyes were scanning everyone he passed. He had a hunch that he was among these people. A white-haired engineer was recording something on a computer. His typing speed was very fast. It seemed that he had made a new discovery and was now very excited. A balding engineer was lying weakly on a chair. His eyes were lifeless, and one of his hands was grabbing the few strands of hair on his head. A female researcher wearing a white coat was standing in front of a container that was constantly heating up. She kept recording the rapidly rising red numbers on the container cup. Everyone was busy and everyone was focused on doing their own things. No one looked at Fang Yen. Many people did not even notice that Fang Yen was standing behind them. Fang Yen walked around and returned to the female researcher who was standing in front of the container recording numbers. Looking at her focused expression, he asked, "Do you think I am handsome?" The female researcher raised her head and glanced at Fang Yen. The pen in her hand was still recording quickly. She said with a displeased expression, "Get lost. You haven't answered my question yet. Do you think I am handsome?" Fang Yen did not get lost. Instead, he continued to ask this ridiculous question that made Qining want to cover his face and run away. Chapter 253. Do you think I'm handsome? This was a question that made one's teeth ache and one's legs tremble. If it wasn't for the fact that when Fang Yen asked this question, his body happened to block the only exit of the research room, Qining would have suspected that this guy wasn't here to find an assassin, but to pick up a girl. This woman wasn't gorgeous, but her facial features were distinct, and she had the demeanor of a European and American chick. Moreover, she was tall and wore a loose white coat. She did look somewhat charming. A serious female engineer. Such a woman was rare outside. Qining was also an expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to become the head of security here. Experts all had their unique sixth sense. and Qin Ying's sixth sense told him that there was something wrong with this woman. This was because there was something wrong with Fang Yan's attitude towards this woman. Even though he still couldn't figure out what exactly was wrong with this woman. He made a gesture behind him, and immediately, a few strong young men in black suits came from all directions and surrounded them. It was very subtle, and even the other staff members didn't notice their movements. The woman was completely infuriated by Fang Yan. She closed the folder in her hand and stared at Fang Yan's face in dissatisfaction. She said, "You're not handsome at all. Pig head and dog face, bear's back and snake's heart, wretched voice, shameless smile. I've never seen a man more disgusting than you. Now you know the answer, right? Get lost, don't disturb me while I'm doing my experiment." Hearing such a horrible evaluation, Fang Yan wasn't angry at all. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, why do you always sneak a peek at me? When did I sneak a peek at you?" The woman was about to explode from anger at Fang Yan. She pointed at Fang Yan and said, "I've been doing boiling experiments all this time. I didn't even notice whether you're a human or a dog. I'm not in the mood and I don't have the time to joke with you. Get lost or I'll complain to the director. What right do you bodyguards have to interrupt our work? Do you know how much damage you've caused to the institute by disrupting my train of thought?" Qin Ying stood beside Fang Yan. Although he was helping Fang Yan block off all possible escape routes for the woman, he said to Fang Yan, "The institute has a rule that no one is allowed to disturb the work of researchers without reason." This kid was also a slippery fellow. Before things were clear, he was not willing to bear any responsibility. Now that he had reminded Fang Yan that there was such a rule in the research institute, it was up to Fang Yan to decide how things would develop in the future. Of course, since it was Fang Yan's decision, Fang Yan naturally had to bear the consequences. Fang Yan pointed to the glass container and said, "The container can reflect light." Although your gaze was fixed on the container and you were constantly recording the boiling index on it, I could still feel that you were secretly sizing me up. Of course at that time I was only suspicious, but I couldn't be sure that you were definitely looking at me. When I left your research room and walked outside, you raised your head and looked at me. Fang Yan pointed to the glass wall opposite the research room and said, "Don't lie. I clearly saw you sizing me up in that mirror." Fang Yan stared at the woman and said, "Since you said that I'm not good looking, then give me a reason why you peeped at me? I thought that you were very ugly, so I looked at you a few more times. If I were walking on the street and saw a clown wearing silk stockings or a puppy wearing a red vest, I wouldn't be able to help but look at you a few more times. Is this reason enough?" The woman said with a face full of sarcasm. "I walked through the entire underground research institute, walked past every staff member and found a problem. Do you want to know? What?" The woman asked curiously. "You used perfume," Fang Yan said. "In the entire underground research institute only you used perfume. Isn't that strange? People like you who are in the field of bioengineering should be very resistant to foreign smells. The lip flower is too fragrant, so you need to use perfume to cover its original smell, is that right? In your opinion, engineers should be sloppy, not bathing for 3 to 5 days and not getting a haircut for a year and a half, is that right? You became suspicious because you saw a slightly more normal engineer? I use perfume because I don't like potions. Although I'm an engineer, I really don't like to deal with these strange and unpleasant potions all day long. I don't like my job, is that a crime? I don't know which criminal law I've broken. I really don't understand, how can a woman who buries herself in research all day have such a sharp tongue? Is it natural?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Who are you?" "I don't know what you're talking about," the woman said. "My Chinese name is Luo Lin Na, English name is Jane, many people here know me. You can also ask Director Lu Chaoga who recruited me or my supervisor, Zhao Xiqing. The institute still has my file. Have I made myself clear enough?" Fang Yan looked at Qin Ying, who nodded and said, "She's not lying. There aren't many female engineers in the institute. We see her going to work every day." This made Fang Yan feel a little strange. If an engineer was recruited through the proper channels, how could she become the lip flower killer? Could it be that when Lu Chaoga was recruiting she had already found a chance to sneak in? Engineer killer? This kind of profession was rare. The other party was really willing to pay the price. Fang Yan waved his hand, no longer thinking about this question. As long as he caught the person, he would be able to get the answer from her mouth. "Let's talk," Fang Yan said with a smile. "To prove your innocence." Luo Lin Na stared at the boiling test tube and said, "As you can see, I'm in the middle of an experiment, I don't have time to talk to you." Fang Yan looked at the rising red number on the test tube and said, "Unfortunately, it's not up to you." As he spoke, he reached out to grab Luo Lin Na. As long as he had this woman in his hands, he didn't believe that she could play any tricks. At this moment, danger struck. Yes, Fang Yen smelled danger. When he saw Luo Linna's eyes turn cruel, he understood that this woman must have a backup plan. Dodge, Fang Yen shouted. Qining saw Fang Yen rush out at an extremely fast speed and retreat at an even faster speed, and knew that things were not good, so he followed behind Fang Yen and ran out of the research room. Bang! With a dull sound, the red liquid in the test tube boiled to the extreme, and the test tube could not bear the burden and exploded. Not only did the test tube explode, but the entire glass research room that the woman was in also collapsed. The attack power of the liquid bomb was too strong. The red liquid in the test tube had a strong corrosive effect, and wherever it fell it would corrode and burn, emitting white smoke. If Fang Yen and Qin Ying's reactions were any slower, they would have been burned into a foul smell. Bang! The sound of an explosion came from Hujia's office not far away, and the glass of Hujia's door and window was smashed by the strong airflow, flying towards the crowd outside the office. The crowd was in chaos and everyone screamed and fled in all directions. Fang Yen pushed Qin Ying, who was on his back, away and began to search for Luo Linna. This lip-smacking killer named Luo Linna was extremely dangerous, and her scheming and skills were top-notch. Under Fang Yan's various tests, she did not reveal any flaws, and kept stalling for time until the liquid bomb in the test tube exploded. Only then did she reveal her true colors. If it wasn't for that heart-palpitating gaze, she would probably be able to do even more things, right? Where did they find such talents who knew biology and could kill without batting an eye? The crowd was in chaos, and the entire underground research room was in a mess. White smoke billowed in the glass research room, and Hujia's office was actually on fire. Obviously, this woman was an expert in weapons. She caused 2 explosions under Fang Yan's nose at the same time, and he had to admit that she was a strange woman. "Protect the director," Fang Yan shouted. Qining did not hesitate and made a gesture, and a group of men in black rushed towards the office where Lu Chaoga was. Fang Yan stood still, and his eyes were like the eyes of an eagle, searching the crowd. From where he stood, he could see a group of people in white coats running towards the emergency exit. Damn uniform, it made it more difficult for him to find Luo Linna in the crowd. The emergency exit was tightly sealed, and the engineers ran to the door, but found that there was no way to run out of the office. One by one they shouted, and some ran towards the director and deputy director's office, trying to force them to open the door. Lu Chaoga and Zhao Xiqing were smart, and no matter how noisy it was outside, they closed the door and did not come out. As long as they did not take the initiative to come out, it would not be easy for the people outside to get out. Smart people are afraid of death, Fang Yan thought. These smart people were indeed more afraid of death than ordinary people. Suddenly, Fang Yan's eyes became fierce. He smashed the glass wall in front of him, grabbed a piece of glass and threw it at the white figure who was sneaking close to the corner of the wall. At the same time, his body had already jumped high, like a cheetah jumping from one workbench to another. The glass was like a ray of lightning, arriving in an instant. Just as the white figure was about to turn to another corner, the sharp glass cut fiercely stabbed into the back of the white figure. Fang Yan, who was running in the air, could clearly see blood flowing down the smooth glass into the air. Fang Yan's speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye he rushed behind the white figure and punched the back of the person in white. Bang! The body of the person in white flew up, and slammed into the wall in front of her. As she flew in the air, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood rained down, and it was unknown whether the sharp tip of the glass had pierced her internal organs, or if Fang Yan's punch had ruptured and displaced her internal organs. Crack! The body of the person in white slammed into the wall, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly. Her body slid down the snow-white wall, and a dark red blood groove was left on the silver-white alloy cover. Chapter 254. The sharp glass surface had pierced through her body from behind and came out of her chest. Fang Yan's punch had shattered her internal organs, causing her to spit out not only blood but also reddish-brown chunks of her lungs. She had an oval face and a pale complexion. Her eyes were small and her mouth was big, and there was an obvious red mole at the corner of her mouth. She was not Luo Lina, and the person who died was not the lip-smacking killer who had changed her name to Luo Lina. Qining walked over, glanced at the body on the ground and said, "Her name was Wang Ling. She was a research assistant hired by the company from outside. Why did you kill her?" He squatted down to check Wang Ling's breathing to see if she still had a pulse. "Don't move," Fang Yan shouted. Qining looked at Fang Yan and said, "You should know what kind of responsibility you would have to bear if she had died. No one could kill people casually even in this underground laboratory that no one knew about. She's already dead, Fang Yan said. The glass that pierced through her body was thrown by me, and the fatal punch on her back was also thrown by me. I can now confirm that she's already dead. But if you touch her body you'll also die. What? Qi Ning stared at the body on the ground warily and said, she's already a dead person. What else could she have done? Qi Ning's gaze swept over the body and said, you're saying there's something strange about her body? Fang Yan nodded and picked up a pen from the ground. He used the tip of the pen to lift up the white coat worn by the body and pointed at a small silver ball that rolled out and said, as long as you touch that ball of light, both of us will be blown to ashes. How do you know she has such a thing on her body? Qi Ning asked doubtfully. This kind of round ball was very rare, how could it have such a powerful destructive power? I guessed, Fang Yan said. He didn't want to tell Qi Ning that he and Qi Tian had experienced this kind of thing together, and he also didn't want Qi Ning to know how he and Qi Tian had escaped from death. This was the secret between him and Qi Tian. Since the Qin family did not want to make it public, why should he be a villain? She tried to use it to fight back as the glass pierced through her body. Unfortunately, Fang Yan's speed was too fast. His fist landed on her back, cutting off her life force and draining her strength. Therefore, the silver ball could not be activated and thrown out. Otherwise, this research lab would be destroyed. Qi Ning was very depressed. He knew that Fang Yan was hiding something from him. However, he had held back from Fang Yan before, and when Fang Yan wanted to further inquire about his background, he stopped him. Therefore, if Fang Yan didn't say anything, he couldn't do anything about it. She's in cahoots with the lip flower killer, Fang Yan said. After looking at her height and body shape, he said, she might be the substitute of the lip flower killer. She exposed herself at this time to cover lip flower's escape. She has a substitute? Qi Ning was really angry. How many people did they send in? What are they trying to do? They want the Rubik's Cube, Lu Chaoga said coldly as she walked over and looked at the body on the ground. I personally recruited Wang Ling. I was worried that she was a commercial spy, so I had her life and work history reviewed from birth until now, but I didn't expect that there would still be a problem. It was because they were worried that someone would do something in the middle, so the recruitment was fully handled by Lu Chaoga. She had spent too much time and energy on it, and she didn't expect to recruit 2 killers. This was a very serious blow to Lu Chaoga. Fang Yan patted Lu Chaoga's shoulder and said with a smile, the most famous intelligence agencies in the world are the former Soviet Union's KGB, the United States FBI, Israel's Mossad. These are all agencies that specialize in intelligence gathering and espionage, and there will also be spies from other countries in their ranks. This kind of thing is hard to avoid. Longtu Group is such a big company, there should be a lot of commercial spies in it, right? Lu Chaoga nodded and said, it's good to be exposed earlier. Let me know how to take precautions. 2 killers had been exposed today, so whether there were any other suspicious targets in this underground research institute was something that Lu Chaoga had to focus on and deal with next. A man in black came over to report to Qi Ning and said, Captain, we've searched everywhere, but we didn't find the target. Qi Ning sighed and said, she escaped. Even if we can't find her, we have to find her escape route, Fang Yan said. He picked up the small silver ball from the ground and carefully put it in his pocket. This thing was really too dangerous. If they were to accidentally detonate it, they wouldn't be able to cry even if they wanted to. Qi Ning waved his hand, and 2 men in black came over to dispose of the body. Zhao Xiqing comforted the other workers and told them that this was a research accident. When doing research there would often be all kinds of accidents, which was why every researcher had their own independent research institute. However, an accident like today's explosion and fire was rare. The fire in Hu Jia's office had been put out. Fang Yan held his breath and went in to take a look, then hurriedly left. Hu Jia's body was gone, but there were many pieces of charred flesh on the table and on the floor. There were also many places that had been corroded and burned, and the walls were also densely packed with holes of different depths. It was too horrible to look at. The lip-smacking killers were indeed cruel and merciless people. After they killed Hu Jia, they even planted a bomb in his body. If they hadn't planted the bomb in the body wouldn't have exploded into such a state. Those people had already lost all humanity. Qi Ning surveyed the scene and remembered that when Fang Yan first came, he forbade everyone to touch Hu Jia's body. He couldn't help but take another look at him. Who was this guy? Why did he know so many things? As a professional bodyguard, he noticed a lot of details that were overlooked by others. Compared to him, he was completely unqualified as a bodyguard. Thinking of the gap between the two, Qin Ying's mood was a little depressed. Fang Yen patted him on the shoulder and said, "I'll leave the scene to you. Don't worry about whether there are other killers inside. The most important thing is to find out the way they entered. Only by blocking this way can we ensure that such a thing won't happen again." "I will," Qin Ying said very firmly. If he couldn't even do this well, he would have no face to stay here anymore. Zhao Xiqing was still comforting people outside. Fang Yen followed Lu Chaoge into her office. Lu Chaoge rubbed her head tiredly and said, "I don't understand. Why did she take the initiative to expose it? If they didn't kill Hu Jia, we wouldn't even know of their existence." "Who keeps the Rubik's Cube?" Fang Yen asked. "I keep it," Lu Chaoge said. "Except for me and my aunt, no one understands the real content of the Rubik's Cube. Moreover, I divided the Rubik's Cube into 2 parts and set up 2 research institutes. I'm in charge of the public and my aunt is in charge of the other research institute in the dark. All the engineers can only get a part of the research data. As long as these research data are pieced together, it will be the real Rubik's Cube." "They are anxious," Fang Yen said. "After they came in, they found it difficult to get in touch with the real Rubik's Cube. Or they can only get in touch with a part of the Rubik's Cube, so they couldn't help but make a move. They want you to be confused so that they can infer the real Rubik's Cube from some clues. We are facing a very powerful opponent." Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yen and said, "How much do you know about them?" Fang Yen took out the small ball in his arms and said, "Qin Yiqian and I were almost killed by them." Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yen in surprise and said, "Qin Yiqian asked for leave because of this?" She knew that Qin Yiqian had asked for leave for a long time, but she didn't know the inside story of her leave. "She was injured," Fang Yen said. "She took a bullet for me." Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yen with a strange expression and didn't speak for a long time. "I am her teacher and she is my student. Maybe we are also a pair of friends who can talk to each other," Fang Yen explained. "Does she think so too?" Lu Chaoge asked. "I have heard some of the rumors in the school." Fang Yen shook his head and said, "You know better than me what kind of existence the Qin family is. It is impossible for the two of us. Besides, I am a teacher and she is a student. Our relationship will be that of a teacher and a student." Lu Chaoge chuckled and said, "If you agree, I think Qin Yiqian is very willing to leave Rosefinch. To be honest, the school's education is meaningless to her. I have seen her mother and I know what kind of woman she is. I have always been proud of my abilities. But after interacting with that woman, I actually felt inferior. It is not jealousy, it is inferiority. Can you imagine my disappointment when I took the Qin family's private plane back to Huaqing? Although our negotiation was very pleasant, I still felt very disappointed. It was as if something was missing. If Qin Yiqian really wanted to learn, she had a lot of options to choose from. Every choice is 100 times better than her staying in Rosefinch. What I don't understand is why she is still willing to stay in Rosefinch. If Qin Yiqian is this kind of person, her parents are definitely not ordinary people," Fang Yen said. "Last time they made a move on Qin Yiqian and this time they killed people in the research institute. They are really unscrupulous." "We can't take revenge on every killer," Lu Chaoge said. "We need to find out who is controlling these killers. How should we take revenge on them?" Chapter 255. If you can't think of it, they can't do it. Qin Ying found the route of the lip flower killer's escape, which was through the smoke vent in the kitchen. Such a small hole could only accommodate 1 cat, but it became a free passage for them to commit murder. Fang Yen looked at the smoke vent above his head and said, "The double jumped out to buy time for the lip flower killer. Otherwise she wouldn't have been able to get out so easily. Where does the outside lead to?" "The bushes leading to the backyard," Qin Ying said. "I've already sent someone to check, but it must be too late. Find a way to seal this place," Fang Yen said. "Not only here, but also the entire underground research institute to find other hidden dangers as much as possible." "I will." Qin Ying nodded. With such a thing happening, Qin Ying had to use 200% of his strength this time. Lu Chaoge had already pulled out all the information on Luo Lina for research and said, "She is indeed a scientist, and she has already produced a research result not long after entering the Chaoyin Research Institute. She has been doing boiling experiments since she came in, and the Rubik's Cube technology does need to find the critical point of seawater boiling." This woman was too scary. Every step she took was preparation for this day. "I'm really curious. Who are they?" "Arsenal," Fang Yen said. "A very mysterious killer organization." Lu Chaoge nodded and said, "Perhaps when the lip flower entered, they had already studied the Rubik's Cube technology. In order to gain our trust, they let her produce results in a short time. It was also because of that result that I gave her an even more important task. What I didn't expect was that they dared to attack Qin Etienne. They knew that the Qin family and we were cooperating on the magic project and couldn't get anything from me, so they wanted to kidnap Qin Etienne to get the Rubik's Cube. Although I am the largest shareholder in the Devil Master project, if the Qin family hands over the Rubik's Cube technology to save Qin Etienne, I won't stop them. I can't stop them. Fang Yen nodded and said, so, it makes sense that a few things have happened consecutively. They originally wanted to kidnap Qin Etienne to take away the Rubik's Cube, but the kidnapping failed. They knew the consequences of offending the Qin family, and they also knew that the Qin family would definitely seek them out for revenge. Hiding in the underground research institute was no longer safe, and it was very easy for the Qin family to find them. So they killed Hu Jia to create chaos, hoping to fish in troubled waters to find the real whereabouts of the Rubik's Cube technology. I'm really unlucky, everything is related to me. Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yen and said apologetically, when I gave you Chaoyan's shares, I wanted to repay your kindness, but I also had my own selfishness. You can withdraw now. I think I'll find a way to solve the problem. Since they have the backing of the Qin family, they won't sit idly by. Fang Yen shook his head and said, I didn't accept your shares for the sake of earning more in the future. It's not easy for a woman to start a business, and I don't want anyone to bully you. If I can help, I'll definitely do it. I didn't withdraw at that time and I won't withdraw now. Fang Yen couldn't withdraw now. The Qin family sent that information, and they would keep an eye on Fang Yan's follow-up actions. Thank you, Lu Chaoge said gratefully. Fang Yen waved his hand and said, don't say this word. If you say it, I won't get any benefits. Instead, it feels like everything I've done for you is cancelled out. Lu Chaoge chuckled and said, I went to see my grandmother yesterday and she made a lot of delicious food for me. Did she say anything to you? Fang Yen asked warily. She did. What did she say? Fang Yen secretly prayed that his grandmother would not fan the flames. She told me to eat more and that I've become thinner recently, Lu Chaoge said. That's good. Fang Yen let out a sigh of relief. What? Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan's expression and asked in confusion. Oh, it's nothing, Fang Yen said with a smile. You still have a lot of things to do, so I won't bother you anymore. You just need to manage the research institute and leave the search for the culprit to me. This is also the result that many people want to see. Be careful, Lu Chaoge said. Lu Chaoge took Fang Yen into the elevator, and after entering a series of passwords, the elevator slowly went up. Seeing that there was a piece of white dust on Fang Yan's collar, Lu Chaoge took a step forward and reached out to carefully brush off the dust. Her body was close to Fang Yan's body, her towering chest was almost touching Fang Yan's chest. The mature woman's elegant fragrance as well as the fragrant air she breathed, made it hard for people to extricate themselves from it. As long as Fang Yen reached out a little, he could hold Lu Chaoge's curvy and sexy body in his arms. Lu Chaoge's face was very close to Fang Yan's face, and their bodies were almost glued together. Lu Chaoge's eyelashes fluttered, but she secretly sighed in her heart. When Fang Yan's figure was far away, Lu Chaoge murmured, Grandma also asked me to take good care of you. In front of the cafe at the corner of the street, a black Volkswagen was parked. A woman wearing shorts, leather boots and sunglasses strode over, opened the back door and sat in, and then the Volkswagen immediately started. How was it? The driver asked with a smile. His facial features were well defined, and he had a full beard and a pair of sunglasses on his face. He looked like a very manly man. That guy was not easy to deal with, right? As sly as a fox and as fierce as a dog, the woman said with an unfriendly expression. If it wasn't for the cover of the substitute, I wouldn't have been able to escape. Even a prostitute can slip up sometimes. It's really surprising. The driver joked. Flowery Lips was also known as a prostitute. Because the man and the woman were of the same level, and they were partners, they dared to call out this unknown title casually. If it were someone else, their mouth would have been stuffed with a liquid bomb by Flowery Lips. This kind of opponent is interesting. The woman was not angry. She sneered and said, if it was too easy to die, this game would be boring. The smile on the male driver's face disappeared and he said, don't act on your own. You should know that we failed to kidnap the Qin family's eldest daughter last time. Although the Qin family did not show any reaction, the more they did, the more worried we were about their crazy revenge. After so many years, who dares to use force on the Qin family? Our task is to take the Rubik's Cube. Don't try to challenge Fang Yen. Fang Yan is not as easy to deal with as we think. If it wasn't because you wanted to get rid of Fang Yan, how could you put yourself in danger? Kill a few people and make them fall into chaos. We just need to stay outside and keep an eye on them. It's safe and effective. You just said that no one dares to use force on the Qin family. For so many years, how many people have dared to use force on our arsenal? The arsenal exploded at the slightest touch. We have to make him pay the corresponding price. It's not too much to take his life, right? The driver shook his head and said, everyone only has one life. Who wants to be taken away by others? Fang Yan doesn't want it either. He doesn't have the final say on this kind of thing. What is fighting? Fang Yan asked as he stood on the high platform and looked at the more than 200 students below. This was the second time he had taught a class. Originally, there was a class in the middle, but it was postponed because he was injured in the 10-feet abyss. If you search for this term on the internet, the explanation they give is, the two sides have armed conflict, attack each other. To be honest, I don't like this explanation. In my opinion, fighting is a kind of spirit. It's the spirit of defiance, the spirit of unyielding, and the spirit of never giving up. If you want to conquer a mountain without this spirit, you'll probably give up when you reach the foot of the mountain. If you want to conquer the ocean, you'll give up when you see the waves crashing against the shore. If you want to be number one in the whole year, you'll give up when you see a difficult problem to solve. This spirit is the essence of fighting, and it's also the spirit and blood of fighting. You must be wondering why I'm teaching you about fighting today. Because I want to tell you that in fact, fighting is everywhere in our lives. An exam is a battle, a sports training is a battle, some boys fall in love with the most popular campus belle is a battle. Of course, if there's a girl who likes Tangqing, she may also have to go through a fierce battle. The whole audience burst into laughter. Tangqing was also laughing, but as he laughed, his face became gloomy. Qiniqian, where are you? Even if you don't like me, you don't need to hide from me. Send me a message to tell me that you're still alive, that you're fine. Just a message, okay? I beg you, send me a message, okay? Most importantly, I also have a battle coming up. I've thought about escaping, I've thought about surrendering, but in the end, I still decided to face it bravely. I made this decision because I have the spirit of defiance and injustice in my heart. Mr. Fang, are you going to fight with your rival in love? Mr. Fang, if you like me, you don't have to compete with others. Mr. Fang, what kind of battle are you talking about? Fang Yan waved his hand and said, there are many kinds of battles. If there's a disagreement, we'll fight with our fists and feet. Fang Yan waved his hand at the people behind him. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan, who were dressed in white shorts, walked out from behind the curtain. The whole audience screamed and applauded like thunder. The students knew that Mr. Fang Yan was going to perform kung fu again. He wanted to tell the students the real meaning of fighting through experimental actions. Fang Yan bowed to the audience and waved to Fang Yingying to attack. Fang Yingying stood where he was, with a painful expression on his face. He still lacks that spirit. Fang Yan said to the audience with a smile. The students under the stage roared with laughter again. Fang Yan waved to Fang Yingying again, threatening him with his eyes to attack immediately. Plop. Fang Yingying sat on the ground and said, the battle is over, I'm already dead. Fang Haohan's face changed dramatically, and he was extremely angry. Fang Yingxiong, this idiotic scoundrel who doesn't care about face, making such a decision without any integrity or integrity. What do you mean by sharing weal and woe as a good brother? Can't you at least tell him in advance? Fang Haohan clenched his teeth and also lay straight on the ground, shouting anxiously, I'm also dead, I'm also dead. Chapter 256. The muscles on Fang Yan's face would have twitched if he had not been worried about ruining his image as a gentle, elegant, knowledgeable, and considerate Prince Charming. He was so angry that he felt his outlook on life, values, and the world had collapsed in an instant. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were two cowardly, lazy, and idiotic fellows. How could they have the nerve to lie on the ground and surrender in front of hundreds of students? They were the inner disciples of the Fang family and the old drunkard students. They shouldered the heavy responsibility of protecting the country and carrying forward the Fang family's Tai Chi. How could they do this? Fang Yan's white face turned black, then purple, and then white again. He tried hard to control the muscles on his face and put on a gentle and smiling expression with great difficulty. He said, all the students have seen it. This is a battle without anger. Because they don't have anger in their hearts, they don't have any unwillingness to accept defeat, so they have already lost before the real battle. A battle without fighting spirit can no longer be called a battle. It's a one-sided massacre. Fang Yan walked in front of Fang Yingxiong, placed his foot on his chest and said, I only need to lift my foot and I can break his sternum or directly twist his neck. He has become my captive and I can use all kinds of torture on him. Fang Yen covered the microphone on his collar and squatted down to look at Fang Yingying. He said, "Get up quickly." "No." Fang Yingying shook his head desperately. "If you don't get up, I'll step on you." "I won't get up even if you step on me to death," Fang Yingying said with great determination. "If I get up, you will humiliate me first and then step on me to death. What will make you agree to it?" "Don't hit me." "That's impossible." "Then there's nothing to talk about. I promise I won't hit your face." "That won't do," Fang Yingying said. "If you hit me, I'll lose face in front of these hundreds of students, especially those female students. They used to smile at me when they saw me on the road. Once, when I was eating in the school cafeteria, they even poured their unfinished braised pork into my plate. If you hit me, they won't smile at me anymore and they won't give me braised pork." "They gave it to you and you ate it? Why not? Are you a pig?" "I was born in the year of the pig," Fang Yingying answered smoothly. "Junior martial uncle, I have something to discuss with you." "What? Can you let me beat you up?" Fang Yingying asked carefully. "What?" Fang Yen almost jumped up. "You haven't even cooperated with me in class, and now you want to beat me up? Does he even care about seniority? Look, so many people like you, but Fang Haohan and I are still single. I'm not in a hurry, but Hero is already so old. Let's not talk about marriage and having children, even if we fall in love and touch a girl's hand. I've only touched Fang Haohan's hand, but I've never touched a girl's hand. Fang Haohan is even more pitiful, he's only touched my hand. So I should let you beat me up, and then countless girls will cry and beg to marry you?" "Yes, yes." Fang Yingying nodded. "If Miss Yi beats you up, she will become the queen of Rosefinch High School. I've asked around and many boys like her. Last time when I was walking on the road, there were 2 guys who ran up to me and asked for Miss Ye's phone number. You're so good at martial arts, if Hero and I can beat you up, we will become the idols of our school. How can you be so childish?" Fang Yen said angrily. "How am I childish?" Fang Yingying was not convinced. He had been thinking about this for a long time. As long as Junior Martial Uncle beats him up, he will immediately become famous in Rosefinch and become the king of Rosefinch, the legendary bird king. Just thinking about it made him so excited that all the fat on his body shook. "You think Yi Gentle will become the queen of Rosefinch just because she beats me up? Ask Li Xiaoyan to come and beat me up. See if there are any guys who treat her like a queen. See if anyone runs to you to ask for her phone number. At that time, everyone will say that this woman is ugly and violent. Whoever marries her will be unlucky." Li Xiaoyan was the daughter of the Monkey Fistly family, and she was the most important person in their circle. With a height of 1.6 meters and a weight of nearly 100 kilograms, she was like a moving mountain of meat when she walked. Even Fang Yingying, the fatso, looked small and dainty in front of her, not to mention Fang Yen and Fang Haohan. Fang Yingying's eyes were dull and he said, "Junior Martial Uncle, what do you mean? If you are good-looking, people will praise you for your lively personality after they see you beating people up, and it will add a rude and arrogant charm. If you are ugly and still beat people up, people will say that ugly people are more mischievous." "I'm not ugly," Fang Yingying said stubbornly. "That's what you think," Fang Yen said angrily. He suddenly used his strength and dragged Fang Yingying up from the ground. Fang Yingying was anxious, and he wanted to lie down again as if he was suffering from osteochondrosis. Fang Yen patted his shoulder and Fang Yingying's reflex muscles were suppressed, and he hit Fang Yan's chest with his palm. Fang Yen was very happy and he said to the students in the audience, "Did you see that? Even a clay figurine has some anger. When a person has anger, the strength he can display is quite shocking. This kind of person, even if the final result of the battle is defeat, he has already gained my respect." Although Fang Yen said this, he had already kicked Fang Yingying, who had gained his respect, to the back of the curtain of the stage and he couldn't get up for a long time. Fang Yen walked toward Fang Haohan, and Fang Haohan's eyes closed and he directly fainted. Fang Yen was a little regretful and thought next time in the big class he would just bring Fang Haohan to the stage alone. As an elder he must be fair and treat everyone equally. Today he hit Fang Yingying but not Fang Haohan. This was not fair and presumably Fang Yingying was also not happy. Being a person is difficult. Blue Mountain Club. This was one of the more famous clubs in Huaqing, and it was also the first choice for the young masters of Huaqing to gather. There was a rumor that the backer of this club was one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing, but who it was still a mystery. This was because none of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing had admitted that they were related to Blue Mountain Club. There was a big battle recently, have you guys heard about it? A young man with ear studs asked curiously. In his arms was a snow-white, big-breasted loli. The loli was holding a fork in her hand, and she was currently feeding the strawberries on the plate into the ear stud man's mouth one by one. What battle? Let's hear it. A woman wearing a black dress that revealed her beautiful collarbone asked casually. She was flirting with a handsome British guy beside her. This is a real battle. The ear stud man said with a face full of pride. Wuxia Tai Chi fighting the Japanese sword god, doesn't it sound a bit interesting? This isn't like those boxing matches on TV, it said that it's a real life and death battle between internal experts. Wuxia Tai Chi? Japanese sword god? Someone snorted. In this day and age, even a duo can represent Wuxia Tai Chi? Where did the god of swords come from? Which small East Asian island? The hype nowadays is getting more and more out of hand. Tell me, how much is a ticket? I don't sell tickets. They're fighting on top of Sword Peak. The ear stud man said unhappily. He heard it from a very important person, and the source was definitely reliable. They're quite into it. Why don't they change their names to Shimin Chueshue and Yi Guqing? You guys don't know, right? A fatso joined the crowd with two foreign girls in his arms and said, if I tell you who the person fighting the Japanese sword god is, you won't say that. Who is it? Everyone was curious. Fang Yan, fatso said. Who is that? Some people didn't know who Fang Yan was. There's nothing much to say about Fang Yan, he's just a middle school teacher. Fatso knew how to stir up the audience's emotions. However, this little teacher destroyed Lu Shu, one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing. I heard that his body was crippled and his face was disfigured. Do you guys think he got his title of flower breaker for nothing? Does that mean you guys understand that this isn't a game? That Fang Yan. Why is he fighting the Japanese? I heard that the Japanese came looking for him, who knows? These guys are all brawn and no brains, what can't they do for the title of #1 in the world? Then can we go and watch? The curiosity of the women was fully aroused. When is the competition? Let's go and support that flower breaker. No matter what, he's a contestant from our country, we can't let those Japanese win. Just as everyone was discussing the fight between Flower Breaker and the Japanese sword god, a wheelchair made of stainless steel stopped in front of them. A man wearing a wolf mask sat in the wheelchair. His body was curled up in the wheelchair, one hand supporting his chin. The 2 eyes in the wolf's eyes sized up the people in front of him with great interest. He said, the story is quite interesting. What happened to one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing who was beaten up by Playboy Breaker in the end? How many bowls of rice does he eat every meal? Can he still go out and pick up girls? Alright, is he still alive? There's no point in living after such a tragedy, isn't there? Everyone held their breath and looked at the wolf-headed man in front of them in fear. Although they couldn't see his face, everyone could feel that he was smiling. However, his smile was so cruel. It was as if he could stab himself at any time. Chapter 257. No one answered the wolf-headed man's words. This person's arrival was too strange, and his identity was too suspicious. Under this dim and ambiguous light, wearing a bronze wolf mask in front of everyone, it already made everyone's heart feel heavy, and it was hard to breathe. Was this something that a normal person could do? What? No one wants to answer? The wolf-headed man said with a smile. You see that I am disabled, so you bully me? The man with the earring secretly swallowed and said, we are not bullying you, but the questions you asked, we don't know. That young Master Lu. Ever since his accident, he has never shown his face in public again. Before, when he had nothing to do, he would come to the Blue Mountain Club to sit down. I even fought with him a few times, but I haven't seen him for a long time. Yes. There was a rumor that he was dead before, but I don't believe it anyway. Later, Lu Qingming came out to support the Lu family, and this rumor became more and more popular. Fatso didn't go on. If he did, it would seem like he was trying to sow discord. So you think that the unlucky and miserable young Master Lu is dead, right? The wolf-headed man reached out to pat Fatso's face. Although Fatso was fat, he wasn't short. The wolf-headed man sitting in a wheelchair tried to stretch out his hand, but he couldn't reach his face. Give me your face, the wolf-headed man said. Fatso clenched his teeth, ignoring everyone's surprise and the subtle sneers on their faces, and really gave his face. The wolf-headed man patted Fatso's face, laughed and said, You Fatso, your fat head is quite flexible. Do you know what will happen to you if you don't give me your face? I don't know. Fatso's face was very close to the wolf-headed mask, so he could more deeply feel the ridicule and hatred emanating from the wolf-headed man's eyes. He felt very strange. He had no enmity with this wolf-headed man. It was the first time they met, so why did he hate him? Soon, he understood that the wolf-headed man's eyes weren't deliberately aimed at him, because the target of his ridicule and hatred was himself. He looked at others with the same eyes. "I'll break one of your legs." The wolf-headed man was laughing, but his voice was sinister. Fatso didn't laugh. He knew the wolf-headed man wasn't joking with him. Although the wolf-headed man was disabled, the person pushing the cart behind him looked at him as if he was a lifeless corpse. He was afraid of the wheelbarrow. "This is really a bad habit." The wolf-headed man let go of Fatso's face and sighed softly. "I'm disabled, so I want to break everyone's legs. Why do I have to sit in a wheelchair while you can walk? It's not fair." The wolf-headed man looked at the crowd and said, "Don't you think this is unfair? Didn't you guys want to know what happened to one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing who had his legs broken and face disfigured? I happen to know him very well. Let me tell you what kind of life he leads, okay? Do you know how he walks?" The wolf-headed man asked. Everyone was stunned. Was this guy a lunatic? Some of the smarter ones already understood the wolf-headed man's identity. They wanted to stuff their heads into the sofa so that no one could recognize them. Why did he come to the Blue Mountain Club tonight? Why didn't he go to the Jiangnan Club? Why didn't he go to the Alluring Club? Why didn't he go to any other club? Why did he have to go to this damn Blue Mountain? "Let me show you," the wolf-headed man said with a chuckle. He used both hands to support himself in the wheelchair and tried to stand up. Just as his butt left the wheelchair, he fell back down powerlessly. He didn't have much strength left in his body. The wheelbarrow man wanted to help, but the wolf-headed man pushed him away and said, "I'll do it myself." He took a step forward and landed on the ground with one foot. Then he raised his other foot and landed it gently. His butt arched and he grabbed the wheelchair with both hands to support his body. When both his feet landed on the ground at the same time and he was sure that he could stand, he slowly let go of his hands that were holding the wheelchair. Fortunately, his body only swayed a few times and he didn't fall. "Come, let me show you how young Master Lu, one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing, walks," the wolf-headed man said with a chuckle. His left leg stood more steadily. His right leg was more seriously injured, so when his left leg took a step forward, his right leg dragged forward at the same time. His body swayed left and right like a duck that had just learned how to walk. He walked from the bar counter to the long corridor and then from the long corridor to the bar counter. He said with a chuckle, "Did everyone see that? That young Master Lu walks like this? Don't you think it's funny? Don't you think he's like a duck?" The wolf-headed man laughed as he walked. The space wasn't big, but he walked over and over again in high spirits. As he walked, he asked everyone if young Master Lu walked like a duck. There were more and more onlookers, and some people even ran out of the private room to watch up close. No one spoke and no one smiled. Everyone held their breath, as if they were watching a very sad one-man stage play. In the private room upstairs, Lu Qingming and a group of his companions were drinking and chatting. Looking at the wolf-headed man's performance through the window, Lu Qingming's face was gloomy. "Young master, is that wolf-headed man crazy? Since when does the Blue Mountain Club need a clown to perform?" Lu Qingming suddenly turned around and slapped the talkative guy's face. "Don't call me young master," Lu Qingming roared. A long-legged beauty leisurely held a glass of wine and said, "What? Lu Qingming, do you only have this little courage? It's the Lu family's decision to let you take the lead, not you. What are you afraid of?" Wang Jinghong shut up. Lu Qingming fiercely glared at the woman and said, "If you want to die, don't drag me to hell with you." Wang Jinghong stood up and stood in front of the window with a glass of wine in his hand. He sneered and said, "Having such a big brother really makes people scared and have nightmares at night? But a cripple is a cripple, and a disabled is a disabled. What else can he do now? Don't tell me you're going to hand over everything you have just because of his comical return? Let me tell you, if you dare to do so, I will look down on you for the rest of my life." Wang Jinghong pointed at the wolf-headed man who was still walking back and forth, giggled and said, "Look, doesn't he look like a duck?" Lu Qingming didn't laugh. He clenched his teeth and tightly grasped the window with both hands, almost tearing off a piece of the precious wood. For him this was a difficult choice. The wolf-headed man walked back and forth 5 or 6 times, panting and sweating profusely. More and more people gathered around, which made him very satisfied. He walked around in circles, glanced at the audience, smiled and greeted everyone present and said, "You say, isn't that young Master Lu ridiculous? Isn't he pitiful? However, there is something even more ridiculous and pitiful. Do you know how his face was shaved? You must not know, right? The wolf-headed man proudly patted his chest and said, I know. Come, let me show you. Is there any applause? No one applauded. No one dared to applaud. The atmosphere at the scene was dreadfully depressing. It was obviously a scene of feasting and debauchery, and there were many handsome men and beautiful women around, but everyone seemed to be receiving a solemn trial. This wolf-headed man was judging them. Such a strange thought emerged in their minds. No one applauded, but the wolf-headed man was still enthusiastic and said, You haven't seen my performance, so you don't want to applaud. When you see my performance, you will definitely not be able to stop yourself from clapping. Because in this world, no one can perform better than me. As the wolf-headed man spoke, he reached out and touched the back of his head. The wolf-headed mask was taken off, revealing a ghostly face that made everyone present instantly feel a chill down their spine. Yes, it was not an exaggeration to describe it as a ghostly face. There were scars all over his body, one wound next to another, and there was almost no skin left unscathed. The left eye was cut in the middle, the bridge of the nose collapsed and almost became a big hole, and the lips were also cut in many parts. It was as if one could use chopsticks to pick up a piece of it and dip it in wasabi to go with wine. He was no longer a human. Even an evil spirit that dressed up a little would be more likable than him. This wolf-headed man was one of the 4 beauties of Flower City, Lu Shu, who had been missing for a long time. Where's the applause? The wolf-headed man said aloud. He didn't laugh, his voice was hoarse and low as if he was crying. Now that you've seen my performance, shouldn't you give me some applause? I bet you won't be able to find anyone more like me, because the person I'm imitating is myself. Clatter, applause finally rang out. But it wasn't enthusiastic. A tall man came over with 2 glasses of red wine and said, Young master, let me propose a toast to you. The wolf-headed man took the red wine, clinked glasses with the man, and downed it in one gulp. A woman came over with 2 glasses of wine and said, Young Master Lu, you are still the most charming man in the world. The wolf-headed man took the woman's glass, clinked glasses with the woman, and downed it in one gulp. More people came over with glasses of wine. Looking at Lu Shu, who was surrounded by countless people toasting, the eyes of the man pushing the cart became moist. Lan Shanggu looked at the scene happening in front of him, his fingers rhythmically tapping the table, and said with a solemn expression, He's so cruel to himself, he'll be even more cruel to others. The current Lu Shu is the truly terrifying Lu Shu. Only such a person is worthy to be your opponent, right? Fang Yin stood next to Lan Shanggu and said with a wry smile, Why are all my opponents such lunatics? Chapter 258. The most unlucky thing was to wear a new pair of leather shoes and accidentally step on dog poop. What was even more unlucky was to want to wipe the poop clean but accidentally let it stain your new pants. Fang Yin felt that bumping into the willow tree was like stepping on a pile of poop. Moreover, he thought that his previous action had already gotten rid of that pile of poop. Now it seemed that the poop had already moved to other parts of his body, such as his eyes. To be honest, the willow tree's performance today made him feel a chill in his heart. Using Lan Shanggu's words, he was so fierce to himself. If it was his enemy that fell into his hands, there would only be death. Everything that the willow tree did was to ruin himself. He sank his face and dignity to the bottom of the valley. He treated himself as a pile of mud. He already said that he was a pile of mud. How could you laugh at him and step on him? No one laughed at him and no one looked down on him. The trash that should have left the stage of watching instead risked his life to climb up from that smelly ditch. Even at this time, his body still carried that stench and some of his rotten flesh had already grown fat maggots. However, a man that could stand up from that kind of hopeless situation was a real man. He would always be able to gain more respect from others. Therefore, the willow tree became the central character of the Blue Mountain Club tonight. Lan Shanggu sat back on his seat and said, These families that have been passed down for hundreds of years always have their own outstanding points. Especially when it comes to the cultivation of their descendants. Every family has some unique methods. The saying that the Lu family produces talents isn't just for show. Most of the time they use a free-range method and let you fight for it yourself. If you win and get it, then these things are yours. In order to train the strongest lion to take over, the Lion King doesn't mind his children killing each other. Lan Shanggu sipped his wine and said leisurely, Previously, it was the willow tree that rushed out, so the Lu family piled all the resources on him. Afterwards, the willow tree met with a disaster and was seriously injured. The Lu family pushed Lu Qingming out. How could a big family without a young spokesperson work? They don't care about their own family, but they have to give those fellows that follow behind their butts some confidence. Obviously the willow tree wasn't convinced. He ran out tonight and put on such a show which made the Lu family lose face, but announced his strong return. When he entered the door he seemed to see Lu Qingming's car. If he was also in the Blue Mountain Club he must be very sad to see this scene, right? Next it will be a fight between 2 tigers or 1 tiger following the dragon. It will be up to the brothers to choose. Fang Yan returned to his seat and said, I'm not interested in the fights between you big clans. I'm from a small family, I just want to eat my fill and wear warm clothes. You're also one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing. Can you help me talk to Willow Tree? How about that? Lan Shangu looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, Brother Fang, you are making things difficult for me. You and the Willow Tree are mortal enemies. It is said that the Willow Tree's good face was cut like this because of you. If I go and mediate between you he will definitely hit me with a wine bottle. I admit that I broke his leg and scratched his face, but I had no choice. You don't know how dangerous the situation was at that time. He brought a group of people to kidnap my dearest family and wanted to kill me as well. I endured and endured, but I had no choice but to beat his legs and cut his face. After doing this you don't know how sad I was. I haven't recovered until now. Lan Shangu widened his eyes and stared at Fang Yan. He thought to himself, how could this guy say something so shameless? When were you sad? After you crippled the Willow Tree, you seriously injured the Jiang family, took Xia Tian to eat at Sky Number 1, and conveniently destroyed the famous Tai Chi master Lu Shueru. You still haven't recovered? Fang Yan's expression was sad and he said in a sorrowful voice, when I saw the Willow Tree take off his mask, I can't describe how I felt. How did a good young man become like this? Although I scraped him a few times, his face is really disgusting. This time, Lan Shangu not only felt that the Willow Tree was dangerous, but also felt that the guy in front of him who talked about the Willow Tree with a pitiful face was even more dangerous. There were so many perverts these days that people didn't feel safe living. Lan Shangu raised his glass to Fang Yan and said, Brother Fang, let's not talk about other people's matters. You should have already guessed why I came to find you. Everyone is staring at the big fat piece of meat that is the Rubik's Cube, and our Lan family is no exception. With such a good thing like getting rich we have to take care of our own brothers first, right? Fang Yan looked at Lan Shangu thoughtfully and said, I have guessed why you are looking for me, but what I don't understand is why you are looking for me. What does I have to do with the Rubik's Cube technology? I am just an ordinary teacher at Rosefinch Secondary. Lan Shangu laughed and said, Brother Fang, it's meaningless to talk like this. Who is in charge of the Rubik's Cube? Miss Lu Chaoga. Lu Chaoga separated from the Jiang family and rebuilt Chaoyan technology with the Rubik's Cube technology. Although I am not as smart as the others, I am not that stupid. Chaoyan technology, from the name, you can tell that this is the company of Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan. Can your position in the company, or your position in Lu Chaoga's heart, be light? Fang Yan shook his head and said, I am really not joking. At that time, I did not agree with the name Chaoyan technology, and I have never asked about the company's matters. Why don't you talk to Lu Chaoga? Lan Shangu sighed and said, in the past, everyone was familiar with each other, but now it is not easy to see her. I have made several appointments, but she did not have time to come out. Fang Yan thought, of course, Lu Chaoga would not run out to meet you at this time. Chaoyan technology had just been established, and the Underground Research Institute had already been destroyed. Excellent engineers were killed and she was now very busy. More importantly, in a situation where the enemy was unknown, how would she know who was the good guy and who was the bad guy who wanted to overthrow her? In the face of profit, those people could really do anything. To tell you the truth, in order to be your partner, I have specially asked someone to investigate the relationship between you and Miss Lu Chaoga. In fact, this matter is not very difficult to verify. You only need to go to Rosefinch and ask. Brother Fang is now the spokesperson of Lu Chaoga in Rosefinch, and even the principal of the school values you very much. I think, in addition to Brother Fang's outstanding ability, it is also because of Lu Chaoga's influence behind the scenes, right? That's right. Fang Yan nodded. When Lu Chaoga left, she did put in some good words for me. So, Fang Yan, how about helping me out? Lan Shangu looked at Fang Yan sincerely and said, I know that Lu Chaoga found a very powerful partner in Yanjing, and even the Jiang family does not dare to easily go against them. I know what I am capable of. You guys eat the meat and I will be satisfied with a sip of the soup. What do you want? Fang Yan asked. Since you intend to commercialize the Rubik's Cube, then you will definitely develop products suitable for civilian use. How about the Lan family sell these products? I have no right to make the decision, Fang Yan said. But I can help you pass on the intention of cooperation to Lu Chaoga, and let her decide whether to accept your cooperation. How about it? Lan Shanggu was overjoyed. He raised his glass to Fang Yan again and said, Brother Fang, I cannot thank you enough. I will repay you in the future. You're too kind. Fang Yan said. It's nothing. I'm not doing this for money. Brother Lan and I hit it off. Yes, we hit it off. The two looked at each other and laughed. They drank all the wine and drank it all. Lu Shu drank a lot of alcohol, red wine, beer, and even vodka with high alcohol content. His head was dizzy and his eyes were blurred, but he was really happy. They say that those who survive a disaster are bound to have good fortune. He went from a famous genius in Huaqing to a disabled, useless, and ugly monster. This huge difference almost made him collapse. At the beginning he almost didn't dare to look in the mirror, because he didn't dare to see how his face was ruined. Now he could calmly face that ugly face that made him want to vomit, and he could even use this face to joke in public. Who knew what kind of painful psychological changes he had gone through during this time? Lu Shu hugged a woman and laughed. I'm not a charming man. Look at my face. If a man like this were to lie on you, wouldn't you have nightmares at night? Lu Shu hugged another woman and said, if the two of us stand together, wouldn't we be the beauty and the beast that people often talk about? I'm quite qualified to play the beast, right? Another person came over to propose a toast. When Lu Shu raised his head and was about to accept the wine cup, the expression on his face suddenly became stiff. The eyes that were still laughing just a moment ago also became vicious and fierce. Very quickly Lu Shu laughed again. He laughed very happily. His laughter was arrogant and heart-wrenching. He laughed so hard that he couldn't stand straight and couldn't breathe. He laughed so hard that tears flowed out. But the tears were red. He looked at Fang Yan standing in front of him and said, you're here too. You're also proposing a toast to me? You also think I'm very admirable, right? I'm here to express my apology. Fang Yan handed over the glass in his hand and said, I shouldn't have beaten your legs like this, I shouldn't have shaved your face like this. I apologize to you. I hope you won't take it to heart. You're apologizing to me? You're telling me not to take it to heart? Lu Shu laughed and wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. You hurt me like this and you're telling me not to take it to heart? Fang Yan, you're really the most interesting guy in the world. Ah. Yes, I'm very regretful. I shouldn't have broken your legs, I shouldn't have shaved your face, I should have killed you directly. Fang Yan handed over the red wine glass in his hand and said, please accept my most sincere apology. The sleeves of the man pushing the cart began to emit white smoke. His black suit and white shirt had been burned. The cart pusher's forehead began to sweat. That was because the bones in his arm were about to be deformed by Fang Yan's grip. The cart pusher's face began to contort as the blood vessels in his arms suddenly burst open. Blood sprayed wildly, but it stopped very quickly. When Fang Yan loosened his grip, the cart pusher's arm had already become a fried dough twist. A ball of dry wood that had lost blood and water. The palm and the arm suddenly separated. The piece that Fang Yan was holding had lost its vitality. The qi couldn't flow and the blood couldn't flow. His right arm was completely destroyed. Fang Yan didn't look at the ferocious expression of the cart pusher. He didn't like ugly things. The willow tree also didn't turn around to look, as if the cart pusher had nothing to do with him. Fang Yan also didn't like the willow tree's face, but he still insisted on looking at him seriously and said, you know what you've done, and I also know what you've done. Not to mention the billions of people in Huaxia, even the Blue Mountain Club tonight is full of talents. There are too many smart people in this world. It's not just you, it's not just me. So I really don't understand, why do you think you can deceive everyone? You made such a big show, you trampled on the face and dignity of the Lu family. You want to prove to everyone that you've come back strong, you want to let people know that you're still alive. Don't tell me you really came back tonight? The willow tree also didn't like Fang Yan. When he saw Fang Yan's face, it was 100 times, 1,000 times, and 10,000 times more painful than when Fang Yan saw his face. Fang Yan felt pain because his face was too ugly, and he felt pain because Fang Yan's face wasn't ugly at all. If Fang Yan's face could become the same as his face, then he would be able to smile from the bottom of his heart, right? Why didn't you do that? The willow tree said with a smile. The first time we met, I wanted to frame you, I wanted to provoke you and Jiang Zhulu to fight. At that time you should have hated me, right? Later, I did so many heartless things, I even wanted to kill you and Lu Chaoga. I already did that. Why didn't you kill me? I've investigated you, I know that you're never willing to suffer losses. I've already treated you like this, why didn't you kill me at that time? What's the big deal about breaking my leg? What's the big deal about shaving my face? You directly pierced my heart, cut my neck, and even at that time, you didn't drag me back from the window. If you let go, I might have fallen to my death from the downstairs. Of course, I might not have fallen to my death. So, you should have moved a table and smashed it down, the big table in the study. I've touched it, it's made of rosewood, I'm afraid it's 800 kilograms, it's heavy. I can't move this 800 kilograms, but I know it's not a problem for you. You can even kill people with a piece of paper before you use this move, I never thought about it. To be honest, when you use this move, it's really too charming. If I were a woman, I would like you. Oh, I'm off topic. You moved that big table and threw it down, smashing it on top of my head. My head will explode just like how you crushed Chinpu's arm. My brain will splatter everywhere, those plants that drank my blood and ate my brain will grow very well. Fang Yin, why didn't you do that? If you did that, I would already be dead. You're also a martial artist, don't you know? When a person's heart stops beating, that person is absolutely safe. Why don't you have any sense of safety? Say, if I accidentally kill you in the future, who will be to blame? You or me? If you don't want me to take revenge, that's impossible, I will definitely take revenge. I worked so hard to live, I ran out to act as a clown, I wanted to get more people's recognition, to get more power. What did I do all of this for? I did it for revenge. How can you not let me take revenge? But once I take revenge, you may die. Not only you, your family, your friends, everyone close to you will die. Oh, I forgot, there's also the students. Those students of yours, I won't let them go. If I really can't find someone to take revenge, I don't mind looking for those students. If you dare to touch them, even a finger of theirs. Lu Shu, I can also do what you said. I will kill your family, kill your friends, kill everyone close to you. I will make your Lu family die without descendants. You see, you're angry? Why are you angry? I'm already like this, why are you still angry with me? You can't let an ugly trash like me follow some etiquette and morality, right? Lu Shu crazily looked at Fang Yan and said, impossible. I don't care about etiquette, I don't care about honor. If I cared about honor, I wouldn't have learned to walk like a duck. My heart is already dead, in fact, my body is already dead. What you see now is a vengeful corpse. Lu Shu reached out his hand to touch Fang Yan's hand, put his hand on his neck and said, you see, I've said it so clearly, don't you want to strangle me to death? Come on, a real man, since you think like this, you should do it immediately. Come on, strangle me to death just like how you just broke Chinpu's arm. Such a good internal martial arts master was destroyed by you just like that. Fang Yin stretched out his hand and strangled Lu Shu's neck. Yes, it should be like this. Lu Shu smiled happily. It should be like this. Use more strength, Fang Yin, use a bit more strength. You should make me unable to speak, you should make me unable to breathe, you should make me stick out my tongue like a hanged ghost. Fang Yin, use a bit more strength. Let me show everyone one more time before I die. Let them see how one of the four prodigies of Huaqing, Lu Shu, dies. It's not that I'm boasting, but this kind of scene. I'm afraid you'll only see this once in your lifetime. Fang Yan's hand began to exert strength. Lu Shu could no longer speak, could no longer breathe, his face began to turn purple, and his tongue had already protruded out. His mood was very good because he was smiling very happily. There was no fear in his eyes, not even a trace of fear, there was actually an excited expression. He was asking for death. Fang Yan's expression changed, then he squinted his eyes and smiled. He let go of Lu Shu's neck, and very considerately helped him tidy up the creases in his shirt. He smiled and said, how can you die? I don't want you to die, I want you to live to 100 years old. Because I know for you living is more difficult than dying. Lu Shu, I hate you so much, so I can't let you die. I want to see you live well, I want you to see me get married and have children, I want to present my happiest life in front of you. What do you think of this? Coward. Lu Shu's face was full of disappointment. You don't even have the courage to kill, what a pity. I'm a teacher, which teacher would fight and kill for no reason? Fang Yin said with a smile, completely ignoring Lu Shu's mockery. Teaching and educating people is my duty. Killing is not. I say, aren't you lacking an apology? A sudden voice sounded behind Fang Yin. Chapter 260. Fang Yin turned around and saw Lu Qingming standing behind him with a group of people. He stood at the forefront of the crowd and kept a few steps away from the others. It was like the sharpest part of a triangle. Fang Yan looked at Lu Qingming and asked with a smile, "What did you just say?" "I said, you owe him an apology. You owe our Lu family an apology," Lu Qingming said seriously. If he could, Lu Qingming didn't want to stand up and say this sentence. He even wished that he didn't appear at the Blue Mountain Club tonight. However, he came and he saw everything that happened in front of him. Therefore he had to stand up. What was the most important quality of an heir? Ability? Vision? Indomitable character, or the spirit of never giving up? All of these were needed. Of course, the most important thing was to be responsible. As the future successor of a family, if one pretended not to see when one's family was being bullied by others or acted like a coward, then the successor was obviously not qualified and would be quite disappointing to the family. If he couldn't even protect his own brother, how could those distant relatives or other people who were fighting behind the Lu family dare to hope that he could stand up and protect them when they were in trouble? Lu Qingming knew that Lu Shu did it on purpose. He knew that he would appear at the Nanshan Club tonight, and he also knew that Fang Yan would appear at the Nanshan Club. Lu Qingming dared to swear on his character and even the reputation of his fiancée Wang Jinghong. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? Lu Qingming never believed in coincidences. The so-called love at first sight might be the result of thousands of painstaking waiting in the dark. The so-called telepathy might just be mutual consent. Why did Lu Shu do this? Before he stood up and said this sentence, Lu Qingming had already thought of the answer to this question. He wanted to provoke Fang Yan and see if Fang Yan dared to kill him in public. If Fang Yan killed him, he would win this battle. Anyone could see that for the willow tree, living was much more difficult than dying. Fang Yan, on the other hand, was different. He was young and promising, lived a rich and colorful life, was powerful, and had a good relationship with others. He did not want to be buried with the willow tree at this time. Also, he was testing him. If he stood up for him, then he would definitely have the most intense conflict with Fang Yan. It was even possible that he would be beaten up by Fang Yan. If he was beaten up by Fang Yan, his reputation would be in tatters, wouldn't it? If that really happened, it would be even more uncertain whether the family would continue to nurture him as the heir. There was also another possibility. If he was afraid of Fang Yan and was unwilling to stand out, the family would definitely give up on him and choose another successor. There was no doubt about this. Lu Qingming knew that Lu Shu's heart was filled with hatred. He not only hated Fang Yan, but he also hated himself. He hated this cousin who had replaced him even more. However, he still had to step forward. He knew that this was a trick of the willow tree to kill 3 birds with 1 stone, but he still had to stand up and say this sentence. Lu Qingming could see that this was a trap, and the willow tree also dug this trap openly. However, he still had to jump down. This was the scary part of the willow tree, and also the reason why he was afraid of the willow tree from the bottom of his heart. Fang Yan smiled and looked at Lu Qingming and said, "I can understand your feelings at this time. Standing up and saying this sentence must be very difficult for you, right? If I had directly strangled him just now, wouldn't your mood be better?" Lu Qingming frowned and said, "Don't sow discord. This is not what a gentleman should do. Lu Shu is my big brother. No matter what you say, we will be a family. I was trying to sow discord in such a subtle way, but you actually saw through it?" Fang Yan said with a surprised face. "When I was strangling his neck just now, you must not have seen it, right? If you saw it, you would have come over and asked me to let go. Isn't that right?" Lu Qingming's face was extremely ugly, but it was difficult for him to refute Fang Yan's vicious words. When he came to the Blue Mountain Club, many people saw him. He came earlier than Fang Yan, so naturally he came earlier than the willow tree. If he didn't see the conflict between the willow tree and Fang Yan, wouldn't he be laughed at by these people present? Everyone was smart, and deceiving oneself was the most stupid behavior. Wang Jinghong walked to Lu Qingming's side with a glass of wine, looked at Fang Yan and said, "At that time he was lying on my body and busy. How could he have the time to pay attention to these trivial things outside?" Wah. Many people looked at Lu Qingming with a playful expression, and more people thoughtfully looked at Lu Qingming's fiancée Wang Jinghong. This woman was not simple. She deliberately said that her relationship with Lu Qingming was so ambiguous, but it also helped Lu Qingming to get out of trouble. She had courage and wisdom. If Lu Qingming betrayed her in the future, perhaps these people present would spurn him for a lifetime. The pressure on Lu Qingming's body suddenly decreased. He coldly stared at Fang Yan and said, "We don't have anything else, but we have a bit of backbone. The Lu family's people can't be bullied by anyone." Bah. Fang Yan slapped Lu Shu's face. Lu Shu simply had no time to react and dodge. After being slapped heavily, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. "I've already bullied him and I'm not going to apologize." What can you do to me? Fang Yan asked back. You're going too far. Lu Qingming angrily shouted. As soon as his voice came, a group of black-clothed people quickly came forward and surrounded Fang Yan. Lu Qingming was the heir that the Lu family was cultivating, so his defense was naturally much stronger than that of the disabled Lu Shu. Especially after the incident of Lu Shu being injured, they didn't dare to have any negligence on Lu Qingming. A few black-clothed people's temples bulged. At first glance, it was obvious that they were experts with deep foundations. There were also a few people who put their hands into their pockets. Obviously, there were weapons that they could rely on. This time Lu Qingming was going to go all out. I don't care about my personal honor, but the honor of the family must be maintained, Lu Qingming said loudly. I know that your skills are good and ordinary people can't do anything to you. I also know that neither I nor the bodyguards behind me are your opponents. But if you don't apologize, I will never take a step back. Only death awaits. Fang Yan backhanded a slap, and Lu Shu was hit again. This time Lu Shu wanted to dodge, but how could his speed be faster than Fang Yan's? Walala! Someone took out a gun and the pitch-black muzzle was aimed at Fang Yan's head and chest. As long as Lu Qingming gave the order, they would be able to surround Fang Yan in the middle and turn him into a sieve. Everyone held their breath. Their eyes were wide open, and they looked at the scene in front of them in surprise. Had these people all gone mad? Lan Shanggu sighed softly. He knew that he had to step forward. He was the one who invited Fang Yan. If something happened to him, his wish would be completely ruined. Even if nothing happened to him, if he didn't step forward to help him when he was in trouble, he would probably have a negative impression of his character, right? Lan Shanggu walked between Fang Yan and Lu Qingming and said with a smile, It's rare for everyone to have time to drink together. Why are you so nervous? Both of you give me some face and let's end today's matter here. How about it? Fang Yan didn't care. He looked at Lan Shanggu and said, Brother Lan, I was invited by you. You can do whatever you want. I'll listen to you. That couldn't be better. Lan Shanggu smiled and nodded, but his heart was extremely bitter. Fang Yan, this bastard, meant that since I was invited by you, I'll let you settle this matter for me. I won't care about what happens next. If you don't care about it, why are you slapping Lu Shu left and right? The dignified young master of the Lu clan, one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing, was taught a lesson like a grandson. Who would feel comfortable seeing that? He couldn't just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. He was forced by this brat to take a side. When everyone present heard Fang Yan's words, they would think that he had a very close relationship with him, right? How would the Lu clan look at him? Now that things had come to this, it was too late for Lan Shanggu to regret. He looked at Lu Qingming and said, Qingming, there's no problem with Fang Yan anymore. What do you say? Lu Qingming hesitated for a moment and said, I have to give Brother Lan face. Today's matter can end here, but I've formed a grudge with him. Lan Shanggu laughed loudly and said, Qingming, I'll remember this favor. Lan Shanggu pulled Fang Yan and wanted to leave. This Blue Mountain Club really wasn't a place to stay for long. The wind behind him whistled. Fang Yan suddenly turned around. Boom. Fang Yan punched out, colliding with the cart pusher Qin Pu's fist. Qin Pu's right fist was injured, so he used his left fist to attack. Not only did his strength not weaken, but it became even more vigorous. If this situation occurred, then it proved that Qin Pu was left-handed. He didn't know whether to praise this guy's insidiousness or laugh at his stupidity. He actually wanted to hold back when fighting with him. The 2 fists collided and energy flowed everywhere. Even though Qin Pu had secretly prepared for a long time, Fang Yan's sudden attack still gave him the upper hand. Qin Pu didn't have enough energy and his feet slipped on the floor. Fang Yan's body moved forward as if attracted by that energy. When Qin Pu's old energy was exhausted, Fang Yan's fist suddenly opened, and his palm quickly wrapped around Qin Pu's fist. I hate sneak attacks, Fang Yan said. He suddenly exerted force and only a kacha sound was heard. Qin Pu's fist was squeezed together and turned into an ugly meatball. His finger bones were all broken and became a pile of bone fragments. Qin Pu screamed. He couldn't bear the pain anymore and fainted on the ground. Chapter 261. If you don't do some things well, you're bullying others. If you do it well, you're not as good as others. Qin Pu was not satisfied and attacked angrily. But because he wasn't as strong as Fang Yan, his fist was crushed. In other people's eyes, he was not as good as others. If you have the ability, then fight with others. What kind of hero are you if you sneak around? Everyone likes to take shortcuts, but everyone doesn't want others to take shortcuts. However, Fang Yan's combat power was shocking. Many people present were thinking that they must get a ticket to the competition at the peak of the sword. If Fang Yan still lost, how powerful would that sword god from Japan be? Especially some female audience members, their eyes were full of strange amorous feelings when they looked at Fang Yan, including those women who went to toast Lu Shu and said he was a hero. Although they felt that Lu Shu's desperate counterattack was very admirable, if they wanted to find a man to sleep with, it would be better to find a handsome young man like Fang Yan. In the end, this was still a world that looked at people's faces. Qin Pu was lying on the ground. His arms were seriously injured, but not a drop of blood flowed out. However, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. That was because his internal organs were injured when he fought with Fang Yan. Qin Pu, who also worked for the Lu family, was injured. Those bodyguards in black were ready to make a move, but Lu Qingming didn't seem to see this scene. They immediately turned their eyes elsewhere. Fang Yan left with a smile on his face. Lan Shanggu also left. He cupped his fists and apologized to the people around him. Lu Qingming walked to Lu Shu's side and supported his unsteady body. He said with concern, "Big brother, are you okay?" Lu Shu raised his head to look at Lu Qingming and laughed. "Big brother, what are you laughing at?" Lu Qingming asked. "In the past, when I heard people say that our Lu family has a talent, I felt a little guilty. But after seeing Qingming's performance tonight, I know that what they said is true. The onlookers see clearly while the players are confused. They were the ones who could see things more clearly. I'm really happy to have a younger brother like this." Lu Shu held Lu Qingming's hand and said with a smile, "I cheated you once and you also forced Fang Yan to slap me a few times. We brothers are even this time, right?" Lu Qingming said with a serious expression, "What does big brother mean? Why would I force Fang Yan to hit you? I just wanted to get justice for you and get back some face for our Lu family. How could I force him to slap you? Does big brother think that I shouldn't do this?" Lu Shu patted Lu Qingming's shoulder and said, "Just based on these words, you are more suitable to be the successor of our Lu family than me. I admit that I'm shameless." "You're shameless. You don't even want to admit it." Lu Qingming coldly snorted and said, "You're my big brother. I have nothing to say if you lecture me. But when we are outside, we should save some face for the Lu family. The family must already know about this matter. Big brother, go back and explain it yourself. Take care." Lu Qingming didn't want to deal with Lu Shu. After saying this, he led a group of people outside. Lu Shu laughed again. He pointed at Lu Qingming's back and said, "Did you see that? This is my younger brother, the future successor of the Lu family. He did a better job than me. The future of the Lu family is limitless." Lu Shu bent down with difficulty to pick up the wolf mask from the ground and put it back on his face. He carefully climbed onto the wheelchair and personally turned the wheelchair to go outside. His movements were awkward and strenuous. His short and skinny figure sitting on the wheelchair made people feel sad. "Give me a grilled fish, 10 mutton skewers, 10 kidney skewers, 2 eggplants and 2 corn. Give me tender corn, don't be like old tree roots that can't be bitten." Lan Shanggu was obviously a regular customer of the barbecue stall. He sat down and began to order skillfully. "All right, give me a pot of edamame and a pot of boiled peanuts to go with the wine. You definitely don't have Moutai here, so bring a box of beer. I want it cold, the colder the better." After the big-breasted and big-ass proprietress happily ran off to place the order, Lan Shanggu looked at Fang Yan and said, "What? Do you think the 4 talents of Huaqing shouldn't be sitting on the side of the road eating barbecue?" "I think it's a bit weird," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Before I came into contact with it, I always felt that rich young masters like you should drive a Lamborghini or Ferrari to race with people, go to the most luxurious nightclubs to pick the most beautiful women, and if anyone dares to fight with you for the girls, you'll use a beer bottle to open their head, and smoke cigars with money to light your cigars." Lan Shanggu laughed and pointed at Fang Yan and said, "Are you praising us or insulting us? I can guarantee you that if any of our friends in our circle dared to do this, they would be scolded as a country bumpkin. Haha, playing with the most beautiful girls at nightclubs, smoking cigars with money to light your cigars, how did you think of that?" Lan Shanggu took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket. It was a pack that cost more than 10 yuan. He handed one to Fang Yan and lit it himself with a lighter. The lighter was also the kind that cost 1 yuan, and the words Huating Real Estate were written on it. After Lan Shanggu took a puff, he said with a pure smile, "It's not as particular as you said. It's not that I haven't done things like going to the most luxurious nightclubs to play with the most beautiful women, but I'm sick of it after doing it once. Not sick of it once, not sick of it twice." I'm not used to cigars, they taste too strong. As for using money to light a cigarette, I've never done something like that. Those with little money are reluctant to do it, and those with too much money are disdainful of it. Only those idiots with abnormal brains would do something so stupid that it makes people laugh their heads off. I'm a child from a courtyard. What we often do is steal the moutai at home, run to a barbecue stall to eat barbecue, drink moutai while eating barbecue and brag with our friends. Some say they want to be a general, others say they want to be the richest man in the world, play rock paper scissors, and when we're drunk, curse a little or even punch a few times. That's what I like to do the most. How should a rich young master live? I don't know about others, but I eat barbecue, fight the landlord, play games, and often take a few children from the courtyard out to be donkeys. We go to places we've never been before. Do you think we're losers? Fang Yen played with the cigarette in his hand, but he didn't light it. He looked at Lan Shanggu and asked, "Who is Xia Tian? She should have a powerful background, right?" "You don't know?" "I don't know." "Then why don't you ask her, but ask me?" Lan Shanggu asked doubtfully. "I'm afraid she will misunderstand and think that I'm friends with her because of her powerful background." "Are you?" "Of course not." Fang Yen was very angry. "I'm willing to be friends with her because she's beautiful and has a good figure." Lan Shanggu laughed, gave a thumbs up to Fang Yen and said, "From the first time I saw you, I thought you were a very pure man." "So are you," Fang Yen said. "You're already one of the 4 beauties of Huaqing, but you still eat barbecue and play poor games all day. The body of a tall, rich and handsome man is the soul of a loser." The two looked at each other and laughed. After a few words, their relationship was a little closer. Fang Yen didn't like to speak in a probing way, and it just so happened that Lan Shanggu was also a bold guy. It was better this way and it would be much easier to get along. The beer was served but they couldn't drink it. The landlady was indeed an honest person. She moved the coldest box of beer in the freezer over. The beer and the bottle cap were frozen, and they had to wait for a while for them to melt. The landlady laughed and said embarrassedly, "I'll get a few bottles for you." As she said that, she ran to get a few bottles of beer that could be drunk immediately and brought them over. Lan Shanggu used his chopsticks to pick up the beer cap and it flew out. He handed the beer to Fang Yen and said, "Let's drink to the bottle. It's troublesome to use a glass." Fang Yen didn't have any objections. He wasn't a good drinker and a dozen bottles of beer couldn't make him drunk. Lan Shanggu opened another bottle for himself, clinked his glass with Fang Yen, and downed it in one gulp. He said, "Because of you, Lu Shu's appearance tonight can only be said to be half a success." He wasn't willing to be abandoned by his family, and he wasn't willing to be replaced by Lu Qingming. That's why he ran out to play the clown. With such a ruckus, people outside looked at him in a different light. Of course, if you hadn't slapped him a few times, the effect would have been even better. It's not impossible to replace Lu Qingming's position again. Fang Yen shook his head and said, "He can't compete with Lu Qingming." "Why do you say so?" "Because he has already lost," Fang Yen said. "He lost to me in a very disgraceful manner." "That's true. For such an accident to happen, the Lu family would definitely not be able to get over it. Besides, his face has been shaved like this and the Lu family can't help him up again. If such a person is pushed out in public, does the Lu family still want their face?" Lan Shanggu looked at Fang Yen with a puzzled expression and said, "He hates you, I can understand that. But why do I feel that you hate him even more? When you were strangling his neck, I carefully looked at your expression. I know that you really wanted to kill him on the spot." "Is there such a thing?" Fang Yen pretended to be ignorant. "I never wanted to kill him. If I wanted to kill him, I would have done it before. I'm a teacher, I really can't do this kind of fighting and killing." Lan Shanggu smiled and shook his head and said, "The more you say like this, the more I know that Lu Shu is dead for sure. This isn't the first time he appeared, which means that before tonight, he did something that made you very angry. What is it? Even if you don't say, I think I can find the answer." "Anyway, this is your personal guess, it has nothing to do with me," Fang Yen said. "Understood." Lan Shanggu nodded. "If the willow tree had died, I would never have linked this matter to you. Isn't this the effect you wanted? Say something more elegant." Fang Yen didn't want to be entangled with this topic too much. Although Lan Shanggu looked rough, he was a quick-witted person. Fang Yen didn't want to reveal too much in front of him, their relationship wasn't that close yet. "Do you know Moonlight over the Lotus Pond?" "Yes." Lan Shanggu smiled and nodded. A section of time slowly unfolds, flowing into the moonlight, slightly rippling. "This song is very popular, I often go to nightclubs with friends to sing it." Fang Yen looked at him like he was looking at an idiot and said, I'm talking about Zhu Ziqing's prose. Chapter 262. After Lan Shanggu left, Fang Yan sat there trembling with anger. That loser who kept saying that his hobbies were eating barbecue, fighting the landlord, and playing computer games had a Bentley Mulsanne that was worth tens of millions waiting at the intersection with a group of bodyguards in black. What was the meaning of this? Didn't you say that you liked to keep a low profile? Didn't you say that you hated showing off? Did your parents know that you were so pretentious? What made Fang Yan even angrier was that you didn't King take me with you when you left. When Fang Yan saw the shirtless and red-necked barbecued friends at the nearby tables looking at the back view of the luxurious motorcade in shock, he did not know how to vent the anger in his heart. The lady boss carefully walked to Fang Yan's side and asked with a smile, That gentleman just now is your friend? You misunderstood, Fang Yan said with a straight face. He's my chauffeur. I asked him to go out and do something. To show that he didn't care at all, Fang Yan even used his chopsticks to pick up the last chives on the plate and chewed them in his mouth. It's too overcooked, Fang Yan said to the lady boss. Yes. Please criticize me. We'll change it immediately, the lady boss said while nodding and bowing. If you come more often, I'll give you a 20% discount. Today the two of you spent a total of 426 yuan. After the 20% discount, just give me 400 yuan. Fang Yan's face was as black as charcoal. That bastard Lan Shanggu, he didn't even pay when he left? Fang Yan took out 400 yuan and handed it over. After walking for a long distance, he remembered that 426 yuan with a 20% discount shouldn't be 400 yuan, right? Fang Yan's body trembled a few times. He felt that everything tonight was really not going well. Since he was unhappy, he couldn't let others be too happy. Fang Yan suddenly turned around and shouted, I say, how long are you going to follow me sneakily? Whoosh! The lights were turned on. A fiery red sports car came to a stop beside Fang Yan. The driver was a very beautiful woman. Her face was like the bright moon, and her eyes were like autumn ponds. Her makeup was exquisite, and her hair was slightly curly. She was wearing a black one-shoulder satin gown with sexy red lips. There was a large earring on her right ear, but her left ear was empty. This kind of asymmetrical outfit perfectly set off her little pride and naughtiness. The woman's voice was hoarse and had a strange charm. She looked at Fang Yan and said, Since when did I stalk you? I'm following them in broad daylight. Who would follow others in a Ferrari sports car? Fang Yan looked at the woman. Even the dark night could not hide her beautiful face. He asked, Why did you come to Flower City? I was afraid that you would die, so I came to see you, the woman said. Because I'm not sure if this will be the last time. Are you saying goodbye? Fang Yan asked. I'm really touched by this reason. The woman shook her head at Fang Yan and said, Get in the car. Fang Yan jumped into the passenger seat with the tip of his foot. Before Fang Yan could buckle his seat belt, the red Ferrari sped away into the distance with a buzzing sound. Seeing this scene, the barbecue stall owner held the 400 yuan in her hand. She thought to herself, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have given him such a high discount. These were all rich people. Giving them a discount would be an insult to them. She hoped that he would not take it to heart. Of course, Fang Yan would not take it to heart. He sat in the driver's seat and looked at the beautiful curve of the woman's side profile. He watched as she skillfully drove the car out of the city, out of the suburbs onto the mountain road and then along the winding mountain road. Screech! The car stopped in the parking lot halfway up the mountain. The woman opened the door and got out first. Fang Yan also got out of the car behind her. The woman took out 2 bottles of Moutai from the car. She threw one to Fang Yan and unscrewed the cap of the other. This is my grandfather's treasure. It is said to be the raw pulp of the first batch of liquor when the Moutai liquor factory was just established. The old man was the first defense chief of Tianfu at that time, so he had a lot of stock. Over the years, other than his old comrades who came over, he would grit his teeth and open a bottle. He didn't even look at the others. This time, I sneaked into his study and stole it when he was asleep. As the woman spoke, she had already slapped the cap off the bottle. She raised her head and took a sip. The woman's drinking posture was bold and unrestrained. Her sexy throat moved, and then half a bottle of thick liquor fell into her stomach. It's a pity to drink like this, Fang Yan said. He unscrewed the cap and sniffed the rich aroma. After feeling it carefully, he took a small sip. It was spicy but not choking. It melted in his mouth. Fang Yan thought that he should give this bottle to the old drunkard. If he drank such a good wine, he would probably have to practice drunken boxing in the yard for a long time. Wine is meant to be drunk. It doesn't matter how I drink it. The woman's buttocks sat on the body of the Ferrari, and half of her body leaned forward. Her plump chest was even more prominent, and her beautiful legs were even more dazzling. The heels of her high heels lightly tapped on the stone floor on the ground, looking leisurely and carefree. This was a rose among flowers. This was the king of birds. Yes, she had a name, Phoenix. This is your wine. You can drink it however you want, Fang Yan said. Phoenix looked at Fang Yan and said, "Are you afraid?" "Not afraid," Fang Yan said. "I'm prepared to die in battle, and I'm also prepared to let my opponent die in battle. Since I'm prepared for these two aspects, it proves that I'm not afraid of death." Phoenix shook her head and said, "This is not your style." "What style should I be? Remember the first time we drank wine? You, me, Bailey Lu, and Bai Xiu. I stole 4 bottles of Mao Tai from my father's study. We agreed that each of us would have a bottle. In the end, the 3 of us finished that bottle of Mao Tai. You drank a third and said that you went to the toilet, and then you never came back," Phoenix said with a disdainful look. "The rest of your wine was shared by us." Fang Yan touched his nose in embarrassment and said, "I've explained it countless times. I had a stomachache that day, and at that time our oldest, Bai Xiu, was only 11 years old. How many 11-year-old children can drink half a kilogram of white wine?" Phoenix was too lazy to argue with Fang Yan on this issue. She said, "You know that Bailey Lu has always wanted to challenge you. He always felt that he should be the #1 person in the younger generation of the inner Jianghu. He waited from the age of 10 to the age of 17, and finally forced you to agree. In the end, when he excitedly went to your house to fight, you said that you were not feeling well and agreed to fight again in 3 days. Bailey Lu turned around and went back. There was a rumor that you defeated your opponent with 1 move. Since then, Bailey Lu has regarded you as his mortal enemy." Fang Yan touched his nose again and said, "For me, the outcome of the competition is nothing compared to the friendship between friends. Bailey Lu is my friend, so I naturally don't want to fight with him. Whether I win or he loses, it will destroy the relationship between us. As for the rumors outside, I have no idea what happened." "What about Bai Xiu?" Phoenix looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "You knew that Bai Xiu liked me, but you deliberately used his name to write a love letter to Yi Wenro. As a result, Yi Wenro beat him half to death." Fang Yan was too lazy to touch his nose. If he touched it any more, the skin on his nose would be rubbed. He sipped the Mao Tai and said, "What do you want to say?" "This is your style," Phoenix said. "Running away, acting shamelessly, pestering endlessly. This is Fang Yan. This is what you should do. I don't understand why you are so stupid this time. You are hopelessly stupid." Fang Yan looked at Phoenix and sighed softly. He said, "You also think I can't beat him?" "Everyone thinks so," Phoenix said. "Your Taiji cultivation is not weak, but Qinya Bing has entered the domain of Sword God." Fang Yan looked at Phoenix and said with a wry smile, "The first time we drank was because I lost to Yi Wenro in a competition. I was beaten up by her. In order to comfort me, you agreed to drink with me. We agreed to drink 1 bottle each, but when I drank a third of the bottle, I began to vomit blood. The blood spat into the wine glass and quickly dyed the wine in the glass red. I was afraid that you would laugh at me, so I drank the blood wine in the glass and said that I was going to the toilet to escape. I didn't dare to drink it. I was afraid that the more I drank, the more blood I would vomit. I couldn't finish the last bottle because I would vomit half a glass of blood with every glass of wine. I didn't want to challenge Bailey Lu because, in my opinion, the Bailey family is crazy. If I beat him the first time, I would soon receive his second challenge. If I beat him the second time, I would immediately receive his third challenge. I didn't want to lose, so I simply didn't want to compete. Because after one competition, I would have to accept their countless challenges. That was really annoying. As for Bai Xiu, I think he and Yi Wenro are a good match. One is gentle and elegant, smiles at anyone he sees and looks so good when he smiles. The other is brutal and violent and everyone wants to beat him up. I think they are a match made in heaven. I was afraid that they would miss this good fate, so I wrote a love letter to Yi Wenro in the name of Bai Xiu. You know, among us, my writing is the best. When Fatty and the others ask me to write love letters, they should at least bring me 2 bottles of good wine or give me a few bags of good medicinal herbs. I wrote love letters to Bai Xiu, but I didn't accept anything from him. I was even generous and didn't let him know. Fang Yan looked up at the sky and said, "Escape, shameless, unreasonable. I always do things like this. But not this time. I don't want to escape, I don't want to be shameless, I don't want to be unreasonable. I want to do something seriously. I want to defeat Qinya Bing with what I have learned over the years." Chapter 263. There was a bright moon in the sky and there was also a bright moon on the ground. The bright moon in the sky was in the sky, and the bright moon on the ground was beside him. The bright moon in the sky was like a beautiful woman, and the beautiful woman on the ground was like a bright moon. Fang Yen was a little drunk, so he couldn't tell whether the bright moon in the sky was brighter or the bright moon on the ground was more beautiful. Many times Fang Yen would have a sense of powerlessness. Why were the women around him so beautiful? Not only were they beautiful but they were also extremely smart. If he married such a woman, who would be the head of the family in the future? Of course, if anyone said that they would scratch their faces, Fang Yen would be a million times unwilling. It was a great pleasure to look at such a beautiful woman. Therefore Fang Yen felt very happy now. There was a bright moon, good wine, a sports car, and a beautiful woman with long legs and breasts. The mountains were towering and the cool wind was surging. If that woman suddenly got drunk or turned into a beast, should he fight back? This was really a difficult choice. Fang Yen suddenly thought of Lu Qingming. When he stood up to help his treacherous brother, he must have experienced a very difficult choice, right? It's not easy for everyone to live. Fang Yen said with a sigh. Go. A woman could actually make such a bold and heroic sound while drinking. The sound was loud, but the way she raised her head and poured the wine into her mouth was really sexy and crazy. Her neck was so slender, her skin was so white, her fingers were so beautiful, and her armpits were so clean. Phoenix drank the remaining half of the wine in one breath and threw the empty bottle in her hand toward the mountain stream. The bottle left her hand and quickly turned into a black shadow. The black dot disappeared, but there was no echo for a long time. Phoenix squinted at Fang Yen and said, I don't want to see you change. I still hope that you are the same as before. You drank and ran away because you couldn't drink anymore and didn't want to drink anymore. You refused Bailey Lu's challenge because you were afraid of losing face. You used Bai Xiu's name to write a love letter to Yuro because you also like me. Fang Yan's jaw dropped as he stared at the phoenix in a daze. Don't look so surprised. Even a fool can see through your childish behavior. Phoenix sneered. On my birthday you let Fang Yingying put laxatives in other people's cakes. In order to make them take the bait, you forced Fang Yingying to eat first. In the end, Fang Yingying and the boys had diarrhea for the whole day. You dragged me to the Great Wall and set off fireworks for half a night. The day before Valentine's Day, you dragged Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu to your house to drink, saying that whoever won would get the chance to ask me. Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu were very happy because they could drink better than you. Later, the old drunkard accidentally smelled alcohol and dragged Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu to drink until the next morning. On Valentine's Day they vomited all their bile. You picked a bunch of wildflowers from my yard and gave them to me. Then you dragged me to the river and sat foolishly for the whole morning. While I was asleep you wanted to secretly kiss me. Fang Yen trembled with anger. He angrily accused her of inaccurate statements and said, You were asleep. How did you know I wanted to secretly kiss you? Because I was pretending to be asleep, Phoenix said matter-of-factly. Don't you know that girls like to pretend to be asleep? Impossible. Fang Yen shook his head. I clearly checked your pulse. Your breathing and pulse were exactly the same as when you were asleep. Idiot. Phoenix shook her head helplessly. Sometimes you're smart, but sometimes you're just plain stupid. For people like us, how hard is it to disguise our breathing and pulse? I can find 100 ways to do it, okay? Locking one's chi, closing one's consciousness, returning to one. Fang Yen trembled even more and scolded, You idiot woman, you even cheat in this kind of thing. You are busy scheming against others all day long. What other words of yours are true? I don't want you to die. Phoenix looked at Fang Yen and said resolutely, This sentence is true. Bailey Lu hates you but he doesn't want you to die. So he came. Bai Xiu doesn't want you to die either but he can't come. He said that you don't like him. If he comes, it will only make your state of mind unhappy. This hypocrite. Fang Yen gritted his teeth and said, You obviously don't want to do something, but you always say it in such a dignified way. No wonder the two of you can get together. Phoenix was silent. Fang Yen didn't want to say anything even more. Yes, Fang Yen liked Phoenix, but the person Phoenix liked was Bai Xiu. Fang Yan's first love was snatched away by another man. Oh, it couldn't be said to be snatched because the girl had never belonged to him. You picked a flower and put it in your hair. I rolled the iron hoop in the alley. Your smile was so bright in your eyes in those carefree days, when he was the most beautiful youth in the world. Fang Yen also loved a girl with all his heart. On that cold morning in the snow-covered winter, Phoenix and Bai Xiu walked hand in hand in the snow. Fang Yan's body shrank at the mouth of the alley, like a turtle trying to bury its body in the knee-deep snow. The snow that year was very very heavy, and the winter that year was very very cold. Fang Yan cried. He squatted in the snow and cried like an abandoned child. That was Fang Yan's first love, fragile and sensitive. A gust of wind could blow it away. You don't understand, Phoenix said. Bai Xiu and I are the same kind of person. I know you don't deserve me, Fang Yan said. Phoenix giggled and said, You're right, I don't deserve you. Seeing that Fang Yan was also laughing, Phoenix looked at Fang Yan seriously and added, Fang Yan, what I said is true. All right, Fang Yan said with a wave of his hand. So this is the legendary good guy card. You women are really good at playing this card. Saying that you're too good, that I don't deserve you, and that you should find a girl who deserves you. Rejecting you makes you feel happy. When we realized that something was wrong, you had already turned around and rushed into the arms of another man who wasn't a good person. Phoenix laughed even more happily and said, Right, Fang Yan, this is the real you. Weren't you good in the past? Everyone thinks you're shameless and despicable, but no one has ever worried about your safety. Bailey Lu once told me that the three of us have grass growing on our graves. Maybe you've even grabbed the little girl's hand to read her fortune. Fang Yan, why do you want to change? Not because you've grown up, not because you've matured. Who said that you have to die once you've grown up? Who said that? Who said to let him die once in front of me? Fang Yan looked up at the bright moon in the sky. The light of the bright moon also shone on his delicate face. His eyes were firm and his voice was soft as he said, I want to win glory for the country. Phoenix left. She left in a rage. When she heard that Fang Yan insisted on fighting to the death in the Qinya military department because he wanted to win glory for the country, she felt as if she had been poisoned by hundreds of strange poisons. She couldn't stay any longer. She was afraid that she would be angered to death by Fang Yan. If Phoenix became a dead bird, that would not be beautiful. Fang Yan felt sad. They did not understand his feelings. At this moment, the sports car came back with a buzzing sound. Phoenix threw the car behind Fang Yan and jumped down from the driver's seat. She strode toward Fang Yan. Fang Yan stepped back and sat down on the body of the sports car. Fang Yan, I will give you another chance. You confessed to me once. If I'm moved by what you say, maybe I'll consider giving you a surprise. On this mountainside, no matter what we do, no one will see us, right? Phoenix's body was lying on top of Fang Yan's body. Her hands were propped up on the car, creating a huge gap between the two of them. It was precisely because of this huge gap that Fang Yan was able to get a panoramic view of her full chest. This woman has quite the body. Fang Yan thought to himself. If you marry me, you might soon become a widow and inherit all my assets. Fang Yan said. He felt that his words were very convincing. If Phoenix were to become a widow and inherit all his assets, wouldn't she be able to find as many handsome men as Bai Xiu in the future? Bang! Phoenix's fist struck Fang Yan's stomach. By the time Fang Yan's body had curled up like a prawn, she had already started up the car and ran away. Wait, she drove the car away. Fang Yan opened his mouth to shout out. However, all he could see was the Ferrari's swallow-tailed and sexy little buttocks. She actually drove the car away? They were in the middle of this barren mountain. How was he supposed to descend the mountain? How was he supposed to return to the city after descending the mountain? How was he supposed to return home after returning to the city? Fang Yan stood at the edge of the cliff and watched as Phoenix drove the sports car through the mountainside like a yellow bolt of lightning. He could not stop himself from grinning. As expected of the woman I once liked. She is so heartless. Fang Yan picked up the half-empty bottle of Maotai on the ground and sang as he made his way to the foot of the mountain. The golden shield, forged by hot blood, reveals itself in times of danger, reveals itself. For the smile of the mother, for the harvest of the earth. Regardless of what others thought, tomorrow at this time, he would fight against the Thousand Leaves army at the summit of Solitary Sword Peak. For the smile of the mother, for the harvest of the earth. Fang Yan howled like a wolf. Chapter 264. I think Junior Martial Uncle looks good in this white robe. He looks especially spirited. At first glance he looks like Prince Charming. Our eternal Prince Charming, Lu Dehua, also said that if a man wants to be handsome, he must wear white. Fang Yingying said, holding a robe in his hand. I think it's better to wear black. Black makes Junior Martial Uncle look capable, serious and cold. If Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the old monster of the Chiba army, wearing this will make it easier for him to slip away. Think about it, the whole mountain is dark. If Junior Martial Uncle wears this and hides in the woods behind the rocks, Where can he find the Chiba army? Pa. Fang Yingying reached out to slap Fang Haohen's head, but he didn't expect Fang Haohen to be on guard against this move. As soon as Fang Yingying's palm reached out, it was slapped by Fang Haohen. Fang Yingying was furious. Although the back of his hand hurt, he pointed at Fang Haohen and scolded, "Fang Haohen, you idiot! How can you boost their morale and diminish Junior Martial Uncle's prestige? Now that the war is coming, what do you mean by saying that Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army?" "I didn't say that Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army," Fang Haohen explained. "I mean if Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army?" "Yes, that's what you said. You don't trust Junior Martial Uncle. There is no if. Junior Martial Uncle can definitely beat the Chiba army," Fang Yingying shouted angrily. "If Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army, we have to go back to Yenjing. Others will look down on us and laugh at us. If Missy gets angry, she might beat us up every day." "You wish," Fang Haohen said. "Do you think anyone can make Missy make a move?" "You, pa." Fang Yingying was hit on the head. Fang Haohen wanted to turn around and run, but he was still slapped on the head. Fang Yin had just finished bathing. He walked out in a white shirt and said, "Aren't you too annoying? I soaked in the bathtub and wanted to be quiet for a while, but I heard you two idiots buzzing non-stop like two flies. My ears couldn't be quiet." Fang Yingying's head was burning with pain, but he looked at Fang Yin with a fawning expression and said, "Junior Martial Uncle, we are choosing your battle robe for tonight. I think with your temperament, white suits you the best." Shimen Chue Shui wears white. A man, a sword, a white robe standing on the roof of the palace. Uncultured. "That's the Forbidden City," Fang Haohen said with disdain. "That's also the roof," Fang Yingying said. "Junior Martial Uncle likes Shimen Chue Shui the most, so I think you should wear a white robe." "Who said I like Shimen Chue Shui the most? I like Chu Liuxiang the most," Fang Yin said with annoyance. What? Fang Yingying couldn't understand Junior Martial Uncle's hobbies. The name Shimen Chue Shui was so cool that it made people shiver. Other people relied on their looks to pick up girls, but you just needed to hand over your name card and the girl would go back with you. "Chu Liuxiang has a lot of wives," Fang Yin said. "Which one do you think looks better on me?" "White." "Black." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's opinions were still very different. One was black and the other was white. "I look good in any one," Fang Yin said. He took the white robe from Fang Yingying's hands and put it on himself. Then he took the black robe from Fang Haohen's hands and draped it over his body. The white robe was the inside and the black robe was the outside. He wore the feelings of the two people on him. Seeing Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's serious expressions and sad eyes, he knew they were touched by his actions. Fang Yin patted Fang Yingying's shoulder and Fang Haohen's head. He smiled and said, "It's okay. The weather is cold. Wear more clothes to keep warm. If Qinya Bing froze to death on the peak of One Sword Peak, wouldn't I have gotten a great bargain?" Fang Yingying's face was full of regret. He said, "I should have prepared a set of armor for Junior Martial Uncle. Yes. It's good to buy a transformer suit to wear." Fang Yin gritted his teeth and looked at the two bastards. He wanted to squeeze them into a meatball. Did they think he was afraid of death by wearing an extra piece of clothing? Fang Yingying stood at the school gate and waved for a long time before a taxi slowly stopped beside them. "Where to?" The taxi driver looked at the three strange-looking guys in front of him and asked. Of course he didn't open the door easily. "One Sword Peak," Fang Yingying said expressionlessly. "It's too far. I'm not going." Before he finished his sentence, the car had already disappeared. "Junior Martial Uncle, those taxi drivers think we're kidnappers," Fang Yingying said angrily. This was already the sixth taxi they had stopped. Every taxi driver saw the expressions of the three of them, heard about their destination and drove away. "Isn't it just going to One Sword Peak? Why are you so nervous? We really aren't kidnappers." "Are there kidnappers who are dressed so formally?" Fang Yin felt extremely sad. He was going to win glory for his country. He was an iron-blooded man who was going to fight to the death with the Japanese sword god. Why couldn't he even hail a taxi? Is this how you treat your national heroes? Fang Yin suddenly felt that he would never love again. He wanted to turn around and go back to sleep. "Use a taxi hailing app," Fang Haohen said. "I set the tip to be 50 yuan. Thankfully, with this 50 yuan tip, a taxi finally took the initiative to stop beside them. "To One Sword Peak?" the black-faced taxi driver asked. Fang Yin, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohen were about to think of a reason to go to One Sword Peak in the middle of the night when the taxi driver asked the second question. "To watch the martial arts competition? You already know?" Fang Yin looked at the taxi driver in shock. Hey, I've sent 2 groups of people there, the taxi driver said proudly. Otherwise, who would be willing to go to such a dark place? Many people went there? Many. I heard that the Guanyin platform at the foot of One Sword Peak is almost full. Ordinary people won't be able to watch this kind of competition between peerless masters, right? Fang Yin said. He thought that it was a big loss not to sell the tickets in advance. Bah, there are no peerless masters these days. Aren't they just bragging about themselves because they want to be famous? What Tai Chi Grandmaster? What Japanese sword god? It's probably not as good as the martial arts competition I watch every night. Fang Yin touched his face. Fortunately, there was no saliva. Seeing that he still needed to find the way, Fang Yin resisted the urge to kill him. Fang Yingying understood Fang Yan's mood and said in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Uncle, I can also drive." "Shut up," Fang Yin said. The taxi driver drove to the Guanyin platform and refused to leave. He said, "It's 160 yuan in total. Plus the 50 yuan you said, it's 210 yuan in total. Brother, do you need a receipt?" Fang Yin looked at the dense crowd at the Guanyin platform and said, "Master, can we go up? We're only halfway up the mountain." "Oh brother, it's not that I don't want to go, but look at the traffic ahead. I can't go even if I want to," the taxi driver complained. Fang Yingying paid the driver. They got out of the car and walked toward the top of Mount Sword. Melon seeds, peanuts, beer, binoculars. Hey, there are people who come here to do business. These merchants were really all pervasive. Mount Sword was an undeveloped mountain range. It used to be the base camp of the racing gang. Today the mountain road was full of cars. The racing gang didn't have a chance to show off. But when they parked their gorgeous sports cars at the Guanyin platform, they received more exclamations and envy than if they won the racing championship 100 times. The higher they went, the more rugged the mountain road became. In the end, there was no way to go. This was also the reason why most people stayed at the Guanyin platform. It was very dangerous to climb the mountain in the middle of the night. If they accidentally rolled down, they might even lose their lives. Of course, such steepness was not an obstacle for Fang Yin, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohan. They ran as fast as they could to the top of the mountain. Looking at the moon in the sky, their minds wandered. "It's so cold," Fang Haohan said. Junior Marshal Uncle was really smart. He put on 2 coats in advance. Fang Yingying didn't say anything. He stood at the top of the mountain with his head held high, bathed in the cool wind and moonlight. It seemed that he was about to face a battle of life and death. This feeling of immersion was really wonderful. Which martial artist didn't want to stand at the top of the world? At this moment, a white figure dashed up the mountain at high speed. His figure was like a white ape, a cheetah, and an immortal born in the world. He didn't need to climb with his hands. With a tap of his feet, he jumped several meters up. Those odd-shaped stones and barbed thorns didn't bother him at all. In the blink of an eye, Chiba Hirobumi was already standing in front of Fang Yin. "You are very punctual," Chiba Hirobumi said with a smile. "This is the traditional virtue of our Wuxia people," Fang Yin said. Chiba Hirobumi pointed to the crowd on the mountainside and said, "A lot of people came. It's normal for an expert like me to have 300 to 500 fans. They all want to see me defeat you with their own eyes." Chiba Hirobumi chuckled and said, "Someone deliberately released the news. They want you to die. They want you to be defeated in front of countless people. They want you to lose your reputation. It seems that your relationship with people is really bad." A wise man like Chiba Hirobumi could see the whole picture with a glance. When he saw the crowd below, he understood that there was another group of people behind the battle. Moreover, it was a group of people who were not kind to Fang Yin. Of course, Chiba Hirobumi didn't have good intentions when he talked about this topic with Fang Yin before the battle. "I like to defeat you when others want to see me defeated," Fang Yin said with a smile. "We call this behavior face slapping." Chapter 265. When Fang Yin was very young, there was a question that he could not understand. Why did Shimen Chueshue and Yi Gucheng have to fight on the summit of the Forbidden City? Why did the East Heretic, the West Poison, the South Emperor, and the North Beggar's supernatural powers have to be discussed on Mount Hua? Why did they have to choose such a high place to spar? If it wasn't someone else's roof, then it was on a famous mountain. Plains wouldn't do? Not a lake? The sea won't do? The canyon wouldn't do? Why did he have to choose a high place? Later, when Fang Yan's Taiji heart was first formed, he gradually found the answer to this question. When experts exchanged blows, it was only natural that they would do so on a high ground. If you are not at the top of Mount Hua, how will others know that you are an expert? If you climbed to the top of Mount Everest to fight, then you would be a peerless master. If you went to outer space to fight with people, you would be a transformer. Besides, such a name sounded impressive, didn't it? If Shimin Chuexue and Yi Gucheng went to Zhangjiago to have a sword duel, others would say that it was a duel at Zhangjiago. Would Shimin Chuexue and Yi Gucheng still have the face to go out and meet people in the future? The tallest mountain in Flower City was the Sword Peak, which made Fang Yen feel deeply regretful. The wide-sleeved robe of Chiba revealed half of her fair breasts. His robe was actually empty, and his skin was so white, even whiter than a woman's. This filled Fang Yan's heart with anticipation. If the Qinya soldier froze to death on the top of the mountain, then he would win without a fight. Fang Yan's shirt was white on the inside and black on the outside. His long robe reached the top of his shoes. The circular cloth shoes were the ones he had worn when he ran away. These were the 1,000-layer soles that his mother had stitched for him. Not only was it sturdy and durable, but it also had emotional support. Upon hearing Fang Yan's wish to reverse the situation and slap his face, Chiba of the army didn't smile at him. Instead he seriously said, "You Wuxia people have an old saying, don't bully the young for being poor. In terms of age, I'm much older than you." Fang Yan sneered and said, "I thought you didn't know. What kind of hero are you to challenge me at such an old age? Why don't you challenge the king of gossip, Kai Zhonghong? Why don't you challenge the martial arts fanatic Ho Jindong? Why don't you challenge householder Weed?" The people that Fang Yan called out were all people that he didn't like or wanted to defeat. If the Chiba military department had issued a challenge to them in advance, then Fang Yan could have saved a lot of time and energy. In the darkness of One Sword Peak, the roars of several men could be heard. "Yellow-haired brat, you yellow-haired brat. If this Japanese kid can't kill you, I'll definitely tear you into pieces. I'm going to die of anger, I'm really going to die of anger. Don't stop me. Let me fight that B***starred who has no sense of propriety. I'll let him know the power of our 8 trigram school. I'm Blue Cloud, the useless disciple of householder Weed. Fang Yan, if you don't die today, I'll definitely challenge you tomorrow." The most awkward thing happened. You thought that you were talking behind someone's back to attract enemies, but you didn't expect that the person you were attacking and slandering was standing behind you and watching coldly. Of course, after hearing Fang Yan's words, their gazes were no longer cold, and they could no longer watch from the sidelines. All of them shouted and cursed, wanting to rush forward and kill Fang Yan before the Chiba military department did. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other. Fang Yingying's face was pale as he said, "How many people did Junior Martial Uncle offend with just one sentence? I don't know about the others, but the 8 trigram school's householder Weed and that martial arts fanatic Ho Jindong will definitely fight to the death with our family. Junior Martial Uncle is Junior Martial Uncle. It's amazing how much hatred he can garner. If Junior Martial Uncle wins today, we'll stay away from him tomorrow," Fang Yingying exhorted. If Junior Martial Uncle lost or died, then everything would be over. People in the martial arts world would also pay attention to a person's death. No matter how much they hated Junior Martial Uncle in the past, they would not take revenge on his family after he passed away. However, if Junior Martial Uncle won today, those people would take revenge on him crazily. Junior Martial Uncle was a despicable person with high martial arts skills, so he was naturally not afraid of them. These 2 little followers couldn't bear such a blow of anger. "I've already thought about it. If Junior Martial Uncle wins today, we'll buy tickets to go back to Yanjing tomorrow." Fang Haohan nodded and agreed with Fang Yingying's words. He felt that this was the first time his big brother had spoken so reasonably. Fang Yan was very angry. He pointed at the crowd in the darkness and scolded, "Are you done? I'm recommending our Huaxia's elite martial artists to the Japanese sword god. The reason why I mentioned your names is because I admire you. Why don't I let him challenge Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan? Because it's not necessary." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan wanted to buy tickets to go back to Yanjing now. "Yellow hair boy, wait to die. Grandpa doesn't need your admiration. If you lose, we'll naturally challenge that old guy. Master's name is not something you can call out." Fang Yan prepared to die. He was fighting an international enemy to the death, but there was a group of bastards hiding in the darkness and scolding him. Fang Yan felt that these guys were really too embarrassing. He picked up a stone from the ground and threw it toward the place where there were many people in the darkness. The stone flew out, but it didn't make any sound. When Fang Yan was wondering where the stone flew to, the big stone smashed toward Fang Yan at a faster speed. Before Fang Yan had time to fight back, countless stones flew out from the darkness. Fang Yen covered his head and ran away shouting, "Hero, help me fight back." "Okay, junior martial uncle?" Fang Yingying agreed readily, then picked up the stone and threw it at Fang Yen. Such a junior martial uncle didn't matter, he just wanted to smash him to death. After everyone was busy for a while, Fang Yen came out of the corner with a smile and said to Chiba, who was standing still and waving his sleeves to throw the stones away, "Look, our Wuxia people are so enthusiastic. You have achieved your goal. There are 3 people who are worth fighting," Chiba Hirobumi said as he looked at Fang Yen. He looked very calm. "What are their names?" Fang Yen had purposely attracted the stone formation to create psychological pressure on the Thousand Leaves division. It was just like how Chiba deliberately mentioned to Fang Yen that someone deliberately released the news of their battle to ruin Fang Yan's reputation. This kind of thing made people feel uncomfortable. For super martial artists like them, a storm was like taking a stroll in the park, and they wouldn't bat an eyelid even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them. However, a straw could also crush a camel. Before that straw was put down, one had to keep pressing stones on the camel. Chiba was pressing stones on Fang Yen, and Fang Yen was also pressing stones on Chiba. This was a psychological battle, and the pressure was already formed as they talked. "I've already said that they are Grandmaster 8 Trigrams, martial fanatic Ho Jindong, and Weed Hermit's disciple Qin Yun. I just don't know if Weed Hermit, that old Taoist, is here. He's very good at climbing the cloud ladder." Chiba didn't disappoint Fang Yen. He said decisively, "After I defeat you, I'll visit them one by one." What's more, this one sentence had created 3 opponents for him at once. This was a trap that Fang Yen had dug for him, and it was also an inner demon. He had to take Fang Yan's move. Before setting foot on the magical land of Wuxia, Chiba already knew that Wuxia was full of martial artists and talents. So what if 3 top-notch experts appeared with one stone? So what if I have to accept their challenge after I defeat you? I entered the Tao with the sword. With a sword in hand, the world is mine. Those who block my sword, I'll cut their bodies and destroy their spirits. Whether it's 1 person or 100 people, they'll all die under my sword. How lonely would it be without human blood to feed the sword? With this thought, Chiba's heroic spirit reached the clouds, and his fighting spirit rose in him. Fang Yen waved his hand. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan immediately ran faster than rabbits. A great battle was about to break out. They were afraid that they would get involved in it. Chiba raised the middle finger of his right hand. His feet didn't move at all, but he rose into the air out of thin air. The mountain wind whistled, rustling the weeds and leaves on the ground. The strange thing was that Chiba's clothes and long hair were tightly attached to his body, completely unaffected by the wind. This was a shield of qi which could release qi and cover his whole body. Fang Yen knew that at this moment, Qinya's Department of War could not be touched by wind, rain, or mosquitoes. With this person's profound cultivation, even if an ordinary person hacked at him with a saber or axe, they would not be able to harm him. This was the world of high-level martial artists, which was also the inner Jianghu that ordinary people didn't know. Fang Yen was the opposite of Chiba's. He stretched out his arms, and the black robe covering him was blown away by the mountain wind. The wind was soft and gentle, helping him take off his cumbersome clothes very skillfully. The tip of his right foot touched the ground and began to draw a semicircle in front of him. If you looked carefully, you would find that the tip of Fang Yan's foot didn't actually touch the ground. It didn't even touch the weeds and mud on the ground, but there was a clear semicircle on the ground. Some weeds and leaves were cut, giving off the sweet smell of juice. Fang Yen was dressed in white. Just his good looks alone made people feel that he was extremely handsome and suave. Fang Yen bowed slightly and his plum blossom steps were natural. His hands also danced with his body consciously. The wind was blowing and he was blowing with the wind. The tree was shaking and he was shaking with the tree. He was the wind and he became the tree. As soon as Tai Chi entered meditation, everything was put down, and he entered a peaceful world. It seemed that under the bright sun, in the universe, in the flowers and plants, he was swaying and flickering. Seeing Fang Yan's state at this time, someone in the dark shadow cheered. Tai Chi is most particular about starting momentum. Starting is part of Tai Chi and it is also the beginning. Quiet like a 1,000-year-old pine and cypress, 10,000-year-old tortoise. Moving like a river dam, wind and thunder rolling, stars falling, planets crashing. This kid actually has the momentum of wind and thunder when he moves. Interesting. Chiba heard the comments of the outside world. In his world, every flower, every grass, every insect, every bird, every sound was captured by him at will. In his absolute wall domain he was the god that ruled the world. This was somewhat similar to Fang Yan's Heart of Tai Chi. All methods returned to the origin. The origin of the world was unique. Anything that was done to the extreme would enter the same domain. Since he had already entered the battle, then he would abandon the noise and use his most powerful killing move to defeat and kill the opponent. This was respect. Chapter 266. When Lu Qingming rushed over, the Guanyin platform was almost crowded to the point that there was no place to stand. He looked up at the top of the mountain, but he couldn't see anything except the lonely cold moon. What are they looking at? Lu Qingming asked with a frown. There were so many people at the scene but no one spoke. Everyone stretched their necks to look at the top of One Sword Peak. It seemed that an unprecedented battle was taking place there. Even if there were really people competing and fighting, they couldn't see it with their naked eyes. Was there a need to be so serious and devout? Young master, let's go a few steps forward. There's an old gentleman pavilion there. Our people have already inquired about it. That's the best place to watch the martial arts. Captain Ning He, who was behind Lu Qingming, whispered. Lu Qingming nodded and thought that it should be so. If he squeezed with these people, he wouldn't be able to see any good show. He could only look at these black heads and smell the hot, sweaty odor coming from their bodies. The Old Lord Pavilion was a simple and crude pavilion, with 4 stone pillars and an arched dome. There were no tables or chairs, and it was even difficult to shelter from the rain and wind. It was said that when Taishang Laojun climbed the mountain, he rested here, and later generations built a pavilion at the place where Laojun rested. Wasn't Taishang Laojun an immortal? With a wave of his sleeves he could go beyond the 9 heavens. Why did he have to rest halfway up the mountain after climbing One Sword Peak? When Lu Qingming came over, there were already several black figures in the pavilion. What was even more surprising was that they had prepared their own wooden tables, chairs, fruits and wine for themselves. Lu Qingming's eyes turned cold. When he was about to ask Ning He who those black shadows were, someone took the initiative to greet him. Qingming, come here quickly. It's really boring to drink alone. You came at the right time. Jiang Zhulu. This was the voice of Jiang Zhulu, who rarely appeared outside recently. Lu Qingming didn't like to deal with Jiang Zhulu because he felt that the father and son, one was silent and treacherous, and the other was gentle and cunning. Neither of them were good people. Of course, how could there be good people in their circle? Since others had invited him, it would be extremely impolite to refuse. After all, they were all familiar with each other, so it was still polite to drink a glass of wine together. Moreover, if it weren't for the fact that he had been performing quite well recently and had an obvious upward trend in the Lu family, the proud and arrogant Jiang Zhulu wouldn't have taken the initiative to invite him over for a drink. Lu Qingming strode towards the old lord's pavilion. When he got closer, he discovered that Jiang Zhulu was holding a small telescope in his hand and was peering at the top of the mountain. Lu Qingming thought, in this kind of dark night, separated by such a long distance, no wonder when I saw them I was just a black shadow, but he was able to recognize me at a glance. It turned out that he had the help of binoculars. She also thought that if he kept looking at her with binoculars, then wouldn't he be able to see the changes in her expression when she heard his voice? Feeling a little unhappy, he secretly decided that he would work hard to improve his self-cultivation in the future and strive to be able to keep a straight face no matter what happened. Jiang Zhulu put down the binoculars in his hand and smilingly said, "Come, Qingming. Let us brothers have a drink. This cool breeze is refreshing, the boundless winter moon is boundless, there are friends, good wine, and there's even someone who will put on a life and death show for us. Isn't life happy?" Lu Qingming took the wine cup that Jiang Zhulu brought over and clinked glasses with Jiang Zhulu. Then, the two of them simultaneously tilted their heads and drank the wine in the cup in one gulp. Putting down the wine cup, Lu Qingming sized up the decorations of the old lord's pavilion and asked with a smile, "Big brother Jiang has been here for a long time?" "Of course." Jiang Zhulu didn't hide his thoughts. "Fang Yan is an old friend of mine. He is fighting with his life on the line and is in danger. How can I not be concerned about such a big matter? So, I had them come to Mount One Sword to survey the best viewing area and prepare a table and good wine. Every time Fang Yan wins, I drink. Every time Fang Yan takes a step back, I drink. He fights with his fists, I fight with my wine. Together we will fight the Japanese sword god." Lu Qingming was very clear about the relationship between Jiang Zhulu and Fang Yan. Lu Qingming wasn't the only one who knew. There weren't many people in the upper circle of Huaqing who didn't know. Originally, Lu Chaoga was the Jiang family's daughter-in-law. Jiang Zhulu took care of Lu Chaoga in every possible way. Even Lu Qingming thought that the two of them would eventually be together. It was impossible for Lu Chaoga to escape the Jiang father and son schemes. Because of Fang Yan's appearance, the situation underwent a shocking reversal. Lu Chaoga and Jiang Zhuliu's relationship gradually drifted apart. Instead, she became more and more intimate with Fang Yan. More importantly, Lu Chaoga forced Jiang Zhulu to return their family's shares, but she secretly used the real Rubik's Cube technology to create an innovative energy company. Chaoyan Technology was a newly opened small company that was unknown to the outside world. However, it received the attention of all the energy giants in the country or those who wanted to enter the energy industry. Because everyone knew that if there were no problems with the Rubik's Cube technology, whether it was used for military or civilian use, it would bring unimaginable profits to investors. Lu Chaoga founded Chaoyan Technology, but she sold her Longtu shares to the Lu family at a sky-high price. Now the Lu and Jiang families were fighting in the Longtu group. The two families were like fire and water, fighting for power and profit endlessly. This was also the reason why Lu Qingming was unwilling to approach Jiang Zhulu when he heard his voice. Now the relationship between the Lu and Jiang families was too tense. However, hearing Jiang Zhulu describe the relationship between him and Fang Yan in an interesting way, Lu Qingming also put down his hatred and took the initiative to raise his glass to Jiang Zhulu. He laughed and said, "Brother Jiang has sharp eyes. Do you think this glass of wine is a toast to Fang Yan for winning or taking a step back?" Jiang Zhulu raised his binoculars and glanced at the top of the mountain. He raised his glass and said, "My good friend is advancing and retreating. I don't even know if he won or lost. I don't care so much. Us brothers should have a good drink." Dang. The two glasses gently collided with each other, and the two once again raised their heads and drank the wine in the glass. Then they raised their glasses and laughed. When the clang rang out, the ice between them melted by a large chunk. Lu Qingming looked at Jiang Zhulu and asked with a serious face, "Brother Jiang, who do you bet on to win this battle?" Yes, what Jiang Zhulu said was right. Fang Yan was advancing and retreating like a butterfly. It was really difficult to predict where he would step next, whether he would take a step forward or a step back. Chiba Bing was in the air, with iron feathers and cold clothes, like a goshawk looking for food. Fang Yan was playing with the flowers. The white robe on his body was like a wave, moving up and down with Fang Yan's body. Fang Yan's body was like a white crane, proud and majestic, yet carefree and at ease. Chiba Bing's middle finger was raised like a sword, and his whole body was like a sharp sword. His back was still straight in the air. His body completely defied the principles of physics. If that powerful ability to stay in the air was imposed on any player, they would be able to jump from one end of the field to the other. Chiba Bing's energy penetrated the outer layer of his body, but it only absorbed clothes and hair and tightly stuck to his body. It did not form a cyclone to absorb the grass and dust on the ground into his body. The energy was balanced, smooth and free. There was no waste. This energy can be released and withdrawn, and it can be big or small. It has become a part of Chiba Bing's body. The Japanese god of swords lives up to his name. Someone in the dark finally said something good about Chiba Bing. It should be known that before, everyone was not very optimistic about Chiba Bing. Although they felt that Chiba Bing was known as the god of swords, he had already lost the upper hand by challenging a junior. He did this just to make a name for himself. Now that they saw his performance, the experts who had not come into contact with him were all moved. This match could be called a real fight between a dragon and a tiger. Chiba Bing's body jumped in the air for a long time, but he did not make a move. It was not that he did not want to make a move, but that he did not find an opportunity to do so. Fang Yan used the plum blossom steps, which contained the way of yin and yang, and waved his hands left and right, which blocked all the killing moves of Chiba Bing. Those seemingly cumbersome and boring movements made up for every flaw in his footwork. The more he waved, the more flaws in Fang Yan's defense. Yes, there was no flaw in Fang Yan's defense. Chiba Bing was not in a hurry at all. At least his expression was calm and gentle, and there was a faint smile in his eyes. His every smile and every strand of hair told others that he was not in a hurry. After all, he could break through the situation with just a thought. Whoosh! Chiba Bing's body suddenly disappeared on the spot. No, he was still in the same place, but it was just an afterimage. Moreover, in Fang Yan's eyes, countless afterimages appeared on the route that Chiba Bing took. Countless members of the Thousand Leaves military stood in the air, forming a human wall. The scene looked really strange. The real Chiba Bing appeared behind Fang Yan, and his middle finger lightly pointed at the back of Fang Yan's head. His movement was very gentle and it did not look fast. He was like a benevolent elder pointing his finger at a child's head after he made a mistake and saying, "You naughty boy." After he finished pointing, the child really became a ghost. Finger sword. Chiba Bing used a finger sword to break the enemy's defense. This was Chiba Bing's choice, to use a majestic force to break an invincible defense. Generally, the opponent who used this move was an opponent with a great disparity in strength. For example, Fang Yan could use it on Fang Yingying. However, if Fang Yingying wanted to use it on Fang Yan, only death awaited him. Chiba Bing was very confident in himself. Even if there were millions of people, he would still go forward. Chapter 267. Li Bai once said that the Shu path was as difficult as ascending to heaven. To Chiba Sun it was extremely difficult to climb the Yi-Sword Peak. Chiba Sun did not know martial arts, which was unbelievable to the Chiba family. The Chiba family passed down the sword Dao, and they had produced countless sword Dao experts. Regardless of gender, they would more or less learn some martial arts. Chiba Sun was an exception. It was not that Chiba Sun did not like martial arts, but she preferred the tea ceremony. Chiba Sun was worried that her skin would become rough and her muscles would become firm after practicing the sword Dao and martial arts. A tea artisan with rough skin and strong muscles was obviously not presentable. No matter how delicious the tea was, people would lose their appetite when they saw the image of the tea attendant, and the tea tasting effect would be greatly reduced. There were strict requirements for the tea leaves, the water, the heat, and even the pot to boil the water and the pot to make the tea. Not to mention the tea master herself. To become an outstanding tea master, one had to be as beautiful as a lotus flower and as gentle as spring water. The plate, the body, and the temperament were all indispensable. Since Chiba Sun was determined to become the most outstanding tea master in Japan, she had to give up on the pursuit of the sword Dao. It was difficult to become a master if one was half-hearted. At least, that was what Chiba Sun thought in the past. However, when she saw her father personally making a cup of tea, she realized that she was wrong. She was so wrong that she was ridiculously wrong. If her father, Hashirama Chiba, was the best kendo master in Japan, no one would doubt it. However, if her father, Hashimoto Chiba, was said to be the best tea master in Japan, many people would turn their noses up at him. However, that was the truth. Sometimes the same thought popped up in Chiba Sun's mind. If her father, Chiba Sun, had represented their school, it would have been difficult for Qin Yitian to win in the tea ceremony. Of course, that thought was ridiculous. How could her father represent Warren High School? Even if he won, no one would think that it was something to be proud of, right? Chiba Sun had no objections to Chiba Sun's tea ceremony. He would never ask his children to learn anything. However, since they were not martial artists, they were forbidden from entering the world of martial artists. So, for tonight's match, the Chiba army took Chiba Haomu and his disciple Qin Yin away, but left her in the custody of her family and forbade her from leaving the house. The person looking after her was an old servant of the family, the wet nurse who watched her grow up. She doted on her in every possible way and never disobeyed. Chiba Kaori couldn't help but giggle. She said that she was going back to her room to study, then tied a rope around her waist and jumped out of the window on the second floor. Now she was already walking on the mountain path to the top of One Sword Peak. Ah! Chiba Kaori exclaimed. A sharp thorn pricked her finger, and a drop of red blood flowed from between her fingers. Even Chiba Sun was in excruciating pain. "Little girl, are you okay?" A hoarse voice came from behind. This hoarse voice was not unpleasant to hear. On the contrary, it sounded very magnetic. Chiba Kaori was startled. She turned around abruptly and asked, "Who are you?" A woman in black looked at Chiba Kaori in confusion and said, "Aren't you from Wuxia?" "I'm Japanese," Chiba Kaori said in English. "No wonder you have a weird accent." The woman also spoke to Chiba Kaori in English. "Little girl, it's so late. Why are you climbing the mountain by yourself? Don't you know it's dangerous?" "I know," Chiba Kaori said. "But I have to come for a reason." "What reason?" the woman in black asked. "Two men are having a match at the top of the mountain." Chiba Kaori said. "I know that. I'm also here for the competition at the top of the mountain," the woman said. "You're here to watch the match too? But it's too dangerous. You should look up from the observation platform with binoculars. Many people do that." "The two fighters are my father, the Chiba army, and my language teacher, Fang Yin. My father doesn't want me to come here. He thinks it's too dangerous. Besides, he's the most gentle father in the world because he never wants me to watch him fight or kill someone. He told me that I'd be sad if he killed someone or someone else killed him. If that's the case, I might as well not watch. Your father is so nice to you." Why did you still come after he said that? Because I promised my language teacher, Fang Yan, that I'd watch their match. Our teacher has never broken his promise to me, so I can't break my promise to him. Chiba Kaori smiled sweetly, her eyes filled with sincerity. You're a good girl who keeps her promise, the woman in black said. Since we have the same goal, let's go together. Of course, Chiba Kaori said with a nod. May I know your name? Phoenix, the woman in black said. My name is Phoenix. Phoenix, the king of birds. What a beautiful name. Chiba Kaori smiled happily. So, Miss Phoenix, did you kidnap me? Phoenix was slightly shocked. Then she smiled happily and said, You're very smart. You're smarter than I thought. Yes, from now on you're my kidnap. But don't worry, I won't hurt you. But if my father wants to kill teacher Fang Yan, my safety won't be guaranteed, right? Yes. Phoenix nodded with a smile. You'll die. Chiba Kaori's idea was to decide life and death with a sword. It was like an intact egg. You wanted to drink the yolk inside, but there was no hole for you to do so. Therefore you could only break the eggshell with force. Only by doing so could you drink the delicious egg juice inside. Fang Yan's defense was impeccable, like an intact egg. Chiba Kaori could find a hole to drink the egg juice, so he simply smashed the entire egg with force. His attack was extremely slow and extremely fast. Before his afterimage completely disappeared in the air, he had already stabbed at the back of Fang Yan's head. If it hit, with Chiba Kaori's cultivation, Fang Yan's head would definitely explode. Fang Yan's left foot just happened to walk to the koan position. He knew where Chiba Kaori was and what he was going to do, but it was too late for him to turn around. Not only could he not turn around, but his body staggered forward. Bang! This was the cheerful sound when the strength on his finger was released to the extreme. Chiba Shinobu thrust his sword, which stuck close to Fang Yan's back. Fang Yan's clothes seemed to be cut by a sharp blade, and there was a huge cut at once. When Chiba Kaori sent out his sword, Fang Yan's body turned rapidly, then turned 180 degrees and punched at Chiba Kaori, who was following him. Chiba Kaori did not change his move. Once again he stabbed at Fang Yan's fist with his finger sword. A finger against a clenched fist. Everyone would think that the fist would win. But what if it was a sword against a clenched fist? For Chiba Kaori, the sword was a sword, the branch was a sword, the finger was a sword, the palm was a sword, the body was a sword, everywhere was a sword, and the world was a sword. For others, it was just a finger. But to him, it was an incomparably sharp treasured sword. The distance between the two narrowed in an instant. When Fang Yan's fist was about to be poked a big hole by Chiba Kaori's finger, Fang Yan suddenly stretched out his palm. Yes, he turned his fist into a palm and his body continued to rush forward. Then his palm cut toward Chiba Kaori's wrist. Chiba Kaori laughed silently. He liked such an opponent who was young, smart and not weak. His body sped up 10 times for no reason. Ignoring Fang Yan's hand knife cutting toward his wrist, he used his body to hit Fang Yan's body fiercely. The two rushed in the same direction. Clang! Fang Yan failed to dodge and hit Chiba Kaori's arms hard. Then his body was sent flying backwards. Crack, crack! Fang Yan's body slid on the ground, crushing countless flowers, plants and some small stones along the way. Bang! It was not until his body hit a big stone that he stopped with difficulty. The pain in his chest was excruciating. It was as if Chiba's attack had shattered all his internal organs. There was a sour and sweet taste in his throat. He licked his lips and a warm liquid flowed out. Junior Martial Uncle. Fang Yingying came out from the corner again and wanted to help Fang Yan. Fang Haohan grabbed Fang Yingying's arm and didn't let him come over at this time. Fang Yan waved his hand, indicating that they didn't have to worry. He wanted to smile at them, but the smile was a little like a grimace. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and struggled to get up from the ground. Only then did blood ooze from Fang Yan's back. It turned out that when Chiba Kaori's finger sword stabbed at the back of Fang Yan's neck, although Fang Yan avoided Chiba Kaori's ultimate skill with drunken crane riding the wind, his clothes and flesh were still cut by his sword chi. Because the fight between the two was too fast, it was only the blink of an eye from the beginning to the present, so the blood had time to appear. Just now, everyone only saw that Chiba Kaori's clothes were torn by him. Chiba Kaori's body slowly landed, and his wide-sleeved robe fluttered in the wind. His whole body was bathed in the moonlight, like a white-clothed god of war. Chiba Kaori looked at Fang Yan, who had just been injured by him, and said, "The body can also be used as a sword. Be careful." "Thank you." Fang Yan bowed to thank him. "This is my first round of failure. Chapter 268. Dang. The glass in Jiang Zhuliu's hand fell to the ground, and he shouted excitedly, Fang Yin was sent flying. Lu Qingming wasn't as well prepared as Jiang Zhuliu, and he didn't have binoculars to look through. Seeing Jiang Zhuliu's joyful expression, he thought to himself, didn't you just say that we're good friends? You fought me with fists and we fought the Japanese sword god together in a drinking battle. Of course, Lu Qingming never believed Jiang Zhuliu's nonsense. Anyone in Huaqing with an IQ of more than 50 wouldn't believe it. Saying the opposite of the truth and saying the bad things nicely was a basic skill that they were trained to learn since they were young. Jiang Zhuliu generously handed the binoculars in his hand to Lu Qingming and said, Qingming, take a look too. It's really exciting. Lu Qingming waved his hand and said with a smile, a gentleman doesn't take what others like. I think Big Brother Jiang needs this binoculars more at this moment. I don't know anything about martial arts, so I'm afraid I can't understand it. Why don't we drink and listen to Big Brother Jiang explain? Jiang Zhuliu put the binoculars on the table and said with a smile, actually, I don't understand either. I'm just watching the show. Jiang Zhuliu took the initiative to raise his glass to Lu Qingming and said, come, Qingming, let's drink to Fang Yin. Fang Yin was sent flying. Lu Qingming said, that's not a good reason to urge us to drink. Let's drink to Fang Yin being sent flying. Lu Qingming laughed and raised his glass to touch Jiang Zhuliu's. He said, this needs to be drunk 3 times in a row. That won't do. If Fang Yin is sent flying once and we drink 3 times in a row, we'll probably be drunk before we even see the result of the match. Qingming, take it slow, there's no rush. Leave half of your brain and one clear eye. I can feel that the real show is yet to come. Big Brother Jiang is right. Lu Qingming nodded. Then let's leave half of our brain and one clear eye and wait for the show to begin. It seems that I already have the answer to my question. Big Brother Jiang bet on the Japanese sword god winning? No, I am betting that Fang Yin will win, Jiang Zhuliu said with absolute certainty. A what? Lu Qingming was puzzled. I always feel that Fang Yin will win because he has never lost. Since the first time I met him, he has never lost. Countless times, when I thought he would lose, when I thought he would die, he won and came back to life. Tell me, how can people feel at ease and boldly place all their bets on such a person? Didn't we just drink a toast to him being sent flying? Because I want him to lose. I hope he dies. With a gloomy expression, Jiang Zhuliu said with a firm voice, Qingming, us two brothers don't need to test each other anymore. You and I have the same goal, and you and my enemy are the same. Ever since the Lu family entered, the Jiang family and the Lu family fought fiercely on the battlefield of Longtu Group. This was purposely done by Lu Chaoga. She set up this whole situation long ago to drag us into the quagmire of Longtu and make it hard for us to get out, while she went into battle with a bold and decisive company recruitment team. We spent all our time and energy on this, so it would be hard for us to take revenge and threaten her. In order to fight for control of Longtu, the Jiang family suffered heavy losses, and the Lu family is a newcomer, so they have to pay 10 times or even 100 times the price to gain a foothold. This war can't continue any longer. It will only drag our Jiang family and Lu family down. Just hindering our development is enough to destroy Longtu Group. Lu Qingming played with the glass in his hand and said, Big Brother Jiang means a truce? What kind of truce? Jiang Zhuliu sighed softly. He had already said it so clearly, but Lu Qingming still wasn't willing to show the corresponding sincerity. Just based on this point, he was far inferior to the Lu tree. If the Lu tree was sitting in front of him, the two of them would have already started discussing the conditions of a truce, and he wouldn't be testing the waters again. Qingming, what conditions do you have? Jiang Zhuliu asked with a smile. Say whatever you want. In any case, this is a private discussion between us brothers, it doesn't count. Isn't that right? The discussion between the two of them obviously counted. If the conditions were suitable, the Jiang family and the Lu family would reconcile according to the framework of this large agreement. They were the vanguard and the vanguard of the two families. This was the meaning of the existence of the family spokesperson. Lu Qingming's fingers lightly knocked on the table and said, just like what Big Brother Jiang said, the Lu family suffered heavy losses in the Jiang family. If we easily withdraw, I'm afraid it would be a bit too embarrassing. Jiang Zhuliu looked at Lu Qingming and said, the Lu family will completely withdraw from Longtu and sell all the shares in their hands to the Jiang family. The Jiang family is willing to give a reasonable price. Don't worry, the Jiang family will definitely not embarrass the Lu family. The more friends, the easier the road. The Jiang family is still very willing to make more friends. Lu Qingming was hesitant. This matter really wasn't up to him to decide alone. He had to go back and report to his uncle, who was also the father of the Lu tree. This was really a complicated relationship between people. Jiang Zhulu knew what Lu Qingming was thinking and advised, "Qingming, the uncles are all smart people. They know in their hearts that only if the Lu family completely withdraws from Longtu can we avoid another war. If we only make a verbal truce, the people below will still fight fiercely. This won't benefit either of our families." Lu Qingming raised his cup and said, "I will bring back Big Brother Jiang's words." Jiang Zhulu nodded with a smile and said, "Remember the result of this match? Let's watch the show." The two of them laughed and said. While Fang Yan and the Japanese sword god Chiba were fighting to the death, the two big families, the Jiang family and the Lu family, who were originally fighting to the death, reached a compromise and cooperation in the Single Sword Peak's Old Lord Pavilion. This world was really boring but also new. Drinking and watching the show, the two of you are so elegant. A man's hearty laughter sounded. Jiang Zhulu and Lu Qingming turned at the same time. Jiang Zhulu smiled and said, "He's also here, what a pity." Seeing Fang Yan fall to the ground, someone in the darkness sighed. If this kid was 10 years older and had 10 more years of accumulation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill that Japanese kid. He's still too young. What a pity. "You old thing, the match isn't over yet, why are you so anxious? Who said that the current Fang Yan isn't that Japanese's opponent? Didn't he stand up again? You're not convinced? If you're not convinced, let's fight." "Let's fight." Chiba Haomu was smiling. He was smiling happily, but there was undisguised cruelty in his eyes. Chiba Haomu pointed at Fang Yan, who had just gotten up from the ground, and said in a vicious voice, "Qing Yin, don't you think he looks like a dog?" Chiba Haomu had watched the movie Journey to the West, starring Huaxia Zhou Xingshi, and there was a line in the movie that left a deep impression on him. "He looks like a dog." He felt that Fang Yan looked like a dog, a defeated dog that was about to be slaughtered for meat. This is just the beginning. Qing Yin's voice sounded, but he couldn't see where he was. "What? Do you think he still has a chance to turn the tables?" "Qing Yin, my father is your master, he's the greatest swordsman in the world. No one can defeat him. Not in the past and not in the future." After a while, Qing Yin's voice sounded again, "Master has also been defeated before." "Qing Yin." Chiba Haomu was furious. "If you can't face yourself and your opponent, you'll never be able to step into the realm of true kendo. Are you lecturing me?" "I'm reminding you." Chiba Haomu nodded and said, "I understand. I'll face myself and I'll respect my opponent. But my father will definitely win. Just like he won countless times in the past. I've never doubted that." Chiba Haomu was an expert and a rare opponent. Facing such an enemy would always make one feel powerless, just like when Fang Yan faced the old drunkard. You tried your best to defeat him, but with a wave of his sleeve, you lost miserably. The path of martial arts was like climbing a mountain. Some people lingered at the foot of the mountain, while others were exhausted halfway up. The higher one went, the more difficult it became. It required physical strength, perseverance, and even more comprehension. Fang Yan had outstanding physical strength, astonishing comprehension, and no lack of perseverance. But he lacked age. He lacked the influence of society, the training of life, and the accumulation of time. He was still so young. That was what everyone said. "I don't accept this," Fang Yan roared in his heart. "I don't have the influence of society, but I'm young and full of vigor. I lack the tempering of life, but I'm in high spirits. I don't need the accumulation of time, because I'm now full of passion and blood. Being young is my greatest advantage and it's also my greatest capital." Fang Yan stood in place, stretched out his arms and slowly closed his eyes. "Come on," Fang Yan said. He was waiting for the Chiba Haomu to attack again. He believed that this time he would not fail. The smile on Chiba Haomu's face gradually faded, and his expression began to become serious. He was growing too fast, almost at a speed visible to the naked eye. If Fang Yan was said to be a little afraid, and a little restrained, at this time Fang Yan had become a brave warrior who was not afraid of death, a true warrior who fought with his life and passion. He no longer defended passively, and he no longer defended himself impeccably. He only wanted to save his life. He opened his mind and let go of life and death. Based on the experience of the Chiba Haomu, there had never been anyone in the younger generation who could do this before. This boy must not be left alive. Chapter 269. Chiba Minister of War was also a person who cherished talents. His eldest disciple, Qing Yin, was originally a ninja sent by the enemy to assassinate him. After the assassination failed, Chiba Minister of War saw that it was not easy for him to learn martial arts, and that he was indeed outstanding in speed and hiding. He only cut off one of his fingers and told him to take care of himself. Qing Yin was grateful and was willing to take him as his master and serve him for life. The butler he left in Japan to look after the house, the Prairie Lord, was originally an expert from the Japanese royal family. After failing to challenge him, he also abandoned his sword and went into business, helping the Chiba family take care of the increasingly complicated business affairs. He had 9 disciples and all of them were experts. In Japan there were countless people who had been guided and influenced by him. The sword god not only used the sword to convey his divinity, but to the Japanese, Chiba Minister of War also represented their spirit. Benevolent spirit, fearless spirit, invincible spirit. At a young age, Chiba Shinobu became known as the god of swords. He defeated the invincible Japanese, and his challengers grew from 1 to 10,000, and from 10,000 to 0. After many years he finally gained a great reputation, and his life returned to peace. However, there was a man from Wuxia who did the same thing as him. That man swept through the 36 islands of Japan alone and finally fought with him on Mount Hachibi. One was good at defense and his defense was watertight. The other was good at attacking and his attacks were fierce and violent. What would the result be when the sharpest spear met the sturdiest shield? After a day and night, the two of them were evenly matched. Chiba Minister of War was unconvinced and wanted to fight again. The man replied, "Childish. Childish." These 2 words were like needles nailed into his eyes and stuck in his throat, making him restless and unable to sleep. Why childish? How was it childish? He once again calmed down and comprehended the sword day and night. Finally, his swordsmanship improved greatly once again based on his original technique. He swung out more and more sword shadows, and the sword shadows he swung out became fewer and fewer. After experiencing such a painful process, he no longer had to swing his sword. That was because he was a sword and everything in the world was a sword. He and the sword had long become one. Chiba Minister of War came to Wuxia, and a simple visit to the school actually caused him to return seriously injured. Chiba of the Ministry of War was shocked. After asking for the details, he found out that he was injured by a teacher of Wuxia. Tai Chi again. The person who swept through the 36 islands of the East Ocean, fought with him for a day and a night, and even called him childish also used Tai Chi, and that man was called Mo Qingdi. Chiba knew that he had to do something like that. He had to come to that land and conquer that land. Originally, he thought that there would be other East Asian masters who would challenge Wuxia before him, to feel the profoundness of their martial arts, to appreciate the magnificence of their martial arts, and to sacrifice and bleed, but he waited for years and years and such people did not appear. Chiba Shinobi was extremely sad. Some of Wuxia's people came to sweep across the East Ocean, but why did none of the East Ocean experts have the courage to conquer Wuxia? Later on, he understood that everyone was looking at him because he was the Japanese sword god. The moment Chiba Shinobu saw Fang Yen, he sensed a familiar aura. The same posture, the same arrogance, the same youth, simple and unfathomable, and even the way he smiled was somewhat similar. He was very similar to Mo Qingdi who called him childish. When he tried to make a move, Fang Yen dodged it easily. This made him confirm again that it was that man, or at least had a close relationship with that man, because when he fought with Mo Qingdi, that man also avoided his first killing move with the same steps. Chiba Shinobu was both emotional and happy. He was emotional because he wanted to challenge Mo Qingdi wholeheartedly, but he didn't know where Mo Qingdi had gone. He was happy that after so many years, Mo Qingdi's descendant had actually grown up. Thinking of this, Chiba Shinobu's mood became a little heavy. So, Chiba Shinobu prepared to start the challenge with Fang Yen, so that he would be the first person to be fed to the sword spirit after he achieved great success in Kendo. Chiba Shinobu knew that Fang Yen was excellent, but he didn't expect him to grow to such an extent in such a short time. This had nothing to do with the improvement of his skills, but had something to do with his inner understanding and willingness to sacrifice. At such a young age he was able to open his mind and give up life and death. How great would he be in the future? This guy must not be left alive. Chiba Shinobu told himself again. He would become the hero of Wuxia, but he would become the disaster of Japan. He could swear with everything that he had that when this guy felt it was necessary, he would sweep across Japan single-handedly like his predecessor Mo Qingdi. No, at least Mo Qingdi felt it was necessary. He wanted to fight with the heroes of Japan and test the depth of Japanese martial arts. Based on Fang Yan's usual style of doing things when he was in a bad mood, when he ate something wrong, when he had diarrhea, when he quarreled with his girlfriend, when he won 5 yuan in the lottery, when the barbecue lady boss gave him an extra plate of edamame, he would also feel that he should go to Japan and sweep the world. At that time, how would Japanese martial arts exist? Where would the dignity of Japanese martial artists be? This guy must not be left alive. This was the third time that Chiba Shinobu told himself. Chiba Shinobu moved. He didn't jump or fly away, nor did he make any fancy or complicated movements. He just walked towards Fang Yan step by step, just like how a normal person would walk. He was like a kind elder, like a kind friend who just wanted to pat you on the shoulder, touch your head, and tell you that you did a good job. However, if your vision was bright enough or your senses were sharp enough, you would find that wherever Chiba Shinobu went, the plants would wither and the rocks would turn to ash, leaving no chance of survival. Sword incineration, someone shouted in the dark. This is sword incineration. Wherever it goes, not even a blade of grass will grow. This old monster actually comprehended the sword incineration? This kid is in danger, someone said. This kid is a good seedling. Fang Hui, that old thing, is really lucky to have a grandson like this. No matter what, he's still our kid. We can't just watch him be killed by a little Japanese. I'll help if I have to. You can forget about it. Open your eyes and see that kid's eyes are still closed. Doesn't he know that he's in danger? Doesn't he know how powerful sword incineration is? It seems that he has a way to deal with it. It's said that this kid has learned the heart of Tai Chi very early, so he can be called a God's favored one. They were right. The person who directly suffered the killing intent of Chiba Shinobu was Fang Yan. Sword master destruction, he could feel the fierce killing intent of Chiba Shinobu with every step. It was a kind of cruelty, despair, and unparalleled power. Sword incineration, using the sword to burn oneself. How did he learn this move? Moreover, as the distance between the two got closer, the killing intent became stronger and stronger. When Chiba Shinobu stood in front of Fang Yan, his body was shrouded in a layer of white light. It had a substantial halo that could be seen by the naked eye, which was the effect of the surging energy in the body. Chiba Shinobu was like a huge warehouse, with a terrifying amount of internal energy. Behind him, a khaki-colored path appeared. It was the color of green plants after their water and vitality were extracted. Fang Yan still didn't open his eyes, and his heart of Tai Chi had already been displayed. He didn't open his eyes, but he knew better than anyone what was happening in front of him. He could see the moment Chiba Shinobu walked past, the moment the grass withered, a bug that couldn't escape in time fell limp, and he also saw that even the wind couldn't blow past Chiba Shinobu. You knew he was strong, but you never expected him to be so strong. Fang Yan was very angry and wanted to kill. These bastards were not simple, and they liked to leave something behind in everything they did. If you had told me earlier that you were so powerful, I would have run back to hug the old drunkard's thigh and kneel down to him, and let him assassinate you or beat you half to death. How could you cheat like this? Because of the turbulence in his heart, Fang Yan almost jumped out of the Tai Chi realm. This shocked him. This was the critical moment of life and death. Once he showed a flaw, Chiba Shinobu would immediately swing his sword and cut him into pieces. You are too excellent. Chiba Shinobu looked at Fang Yan and said, I'm sorry. It would be great if he were an East Asian. If he were an East Asian, he would be ecstatic. He would be willing to teach him everything, and he would become a teacher and a student, a friend, and he would take him to dominate the world, making him the existence he was most proud of. Unfortunately, he was Huaxia's man. Chiba Shinobu stretched out his hand to Fang Yan. Fang Yan looked at the hand with white skin that was almost translucent. The hand stretched directly toward his chest, gentle and steady. Fang Yan reached out to intercept it. Fang Yan's hand moved like an eagle's claw to grab Chiba Shinobu's wrist. Whoosh! He grabbed it? Fang Yan grabbed the wrist of Chiba Shinobu's hand, and the feeling of physical contact was so full. Fang Yan was pleasantly surprised. How could it be so easy? Was this the old monster of Chiba Shinobu's pretense? He had been tricked. Fang Yan's mind trembled slightly, and there was a dangerous aura in his mind. It was clear that he had grabbed Chiba Shinobu's wrist, but why couldn't he move his hand that was grabbing his arm? Fang Yan's arm couldn't move, but Chiba Shinobu's hand, which was being held, could move at will. His hand dragged Fang Yan's hand and continued to move forward. Then he made a cut on Fang Yan's chest. Whoosh! The clothes on Fang Yan's chest were torn and Fang Yan's flesh and blood were exposed. There was a long and deep gash on his chest, and a thin red line appeared. Soon the red line became thicker and thicker, protruding his flesh and blood. How is this possible? Fang Yan's face was full of horror and disbelief. Chapter 270. Tai Chi represents vitality. Where Qi is, it grows and multiplies endlessly. Sword incineration represents death. There's no return. Fang Yan lost. He lost because the power of death was stronger and more vigorous. What a pity. Someone sighed heavily. The competition ends here. Friends, I'll be leaving first. But let's make it clear. I'll be the one to challenge this Japanese in a month. You're not allowed to compete with me. Why? I'm going to challenge him tomorrow. Chiba Haowu laughed maniacally. He said to Qingyin proudly, Qingyin, did you see that? My lord father had won, he had won again. There's no difference from before. But I didn't expect him to use sword incineration. Who does Fang Yan think he is? Is he worthy of father using sword incineration? Shouldn't you keep such a godly skill and use it as a trump card when you challenge a stronger opponent? Chiba Haowu felt that it was natural for his father to win against Fang Yan. He even stubbornly believed that Fang Yan was so weak that he only needed to use 20% to 30% of his strength. Why did he have to use such a powerful technique? Did he deserve it? Qingyin looked at the proud Chiba Haowu and said, Fang Yan is nothing. He's worthy of master using sword incineration. Master knows his opponent better than we do. He knows what kind of opponent he's facing and what kind of technique he should use. Chiba Haowu glanced at Qingyin's position with dissatisfaction. He didn't like Qingyin because he was always hiding in the dark, sneaky, and couldn't be seen. Even when his father won a great victory, he still put on a dead face. Someone who didn't even know how to smile was really annoying. Chiba Haowu looked very disheveled after climbing the mountain. She had underestimated this trip. If it wasn't for the woman who kidnapped her helping her from time to time, she wouldn't have been able to climb the steepest peak of Sword Peak. Chiba Haowu widened her eyes at the scene in front of her. Her eyes couldn't help tearing up. She felt very sad. She saw her father go all out. She also saw how talented Fang Yan was. But her language teacher, Fang Yan, still had his chest cut open by her father. How painful would that be? His father was right. He shouldn't have come to watch this match. No matter if he saw his father being killed or his father killing someone, he wouldn't be happy. Phoenix looked at Chiba Kaoru, whose eyes were brimming with tears, and said with a smile, Are you feeling sad? Why must it be like this? Chiba Kaori asked. Because they are all men with goals, Phoenix said. This pursuit is too big, so big that little women like us can't understand it at all. I'm not willing to accept it. Just kill me, Chiba Kaori said. What? Phoenix frowned. Just kill me, Chiba Kaori said. Because my father will definitely kill teacher Fang Yan. It's better to die earlier than later. The earlier I die, the less painful it will be. The Phoenix sneered and said, Don't worry, the match is not over yet. Of course, the match wasn't over yet. Fang Yan's Tai Chi realm was actually broken by someone. This was the first time, no, the second time. Could also be the third time. The first time was broken by the old drunkard. At that time he had just comprehended the heart of Tai Chi. He had already used the Tai Chi realm, but he was sent flying by a punch. He couldn't stop it and he couldn't stop it. The second time was broken by Yi Ro. That woman could ignore all defenses. She could hit your face whenever she wanted and she could kick your balls whenever she wanted. This time, it was broken by Chiba Kaoru, a Japanese who came from afar across the ocean. The Japanese sword god had the ability to look down on all the heroes. He deserved the praise and support of the Japanese. Fang Yan looked at the crack on his chest, the open flesh, and the rain of blood. He said with a smile, Why did you say sorry? Did you want to kill me because you saw my talent? But it's not your fault. I'm indeed the most outstanding young man in the whole of Wuxia. Thinking that Yi Ro might also be watching from the sidelines, Fang Yan unwillingly added two words, one of, as Fang Yan spoke, he stabbed the hand that was holding Chiba Kaoru's wrist hard. His 5 fingers were like sharp edges, fiercely piercing Chiba Kaoru's wrist, leaving 5 bloody holes on the wall of his hand. Seeing Chiba Kaoru's puzzled look, Fang Yan said with a smile, Your sword represents death, but Tai Chi represents rebirth. My rebirth is not as good as your death force. So, although I was still tied up by you and my chest was cut by you, when you cut my chest, there would naturally be airflow coming out. So, you found an opportunity. Chiba Kaoru's eyes were full of admiration. When I used the sword energy to slash open your chest, it was also the moment when the old energy was gone and the new energy hadn't been regenerated. The fleeting opportunity was seized by you. You cut me with your sword and I made 5 small holes on your body. You are older than me, so I suffered a little loss, Fang Yan said with a smile. Fang Yan, how about being an East Asian in your next life? Chiba Keiru looked at Fang Yan's handsome face and said very seriously, in that case I can't bear to kill you. I can feel your sincerity, but I have to refuse, so, don't make such a difficult request to others in the future, Fang Yan said angrily. My father will still be my father in his next life, and my mother will still be my mother in her next life. I will still be born in the Tai Chi Fang family and have the heart of Tai Chi. If an East Asian called Chiba Keiru comes to challenge me, I will gladly accept the challenge and try my best to kill him. If I can't kill him, I will seriously injure him. If I can't, I will bite him. There are many people in Wuxia. We have many cowards who are afraid of death, but we don't lack hot-blooded and fearless warriors. That makes me want to kill you even more. I've decided a long time ago that I will be a Wuxia man in life and be buried in Huaxia's grave when I die. Fang Yan laughed very heroically. I don't have enough courage and I don't have enough vigor. I cherish my life very much, but if it's necessary, I don't mind sacrificing it. If you can take it, you can take it. If you can't leave. Chiba Keiru sighed softly. Such young people were scary, and Wuxia, who had these young people, was the most promising. With a flick of his wrist, Fang Yan's right arm looked as if it had been sliced by countless knives, and countless small wounds appeared. Those were caused by the sword energy. He didn't need to use his fists or feet. Just every joint of his arm could be used as a sword. Chiba Keiru's cultivation was really profound and terrifying. Fang Yan punched out and Chiba Keiru waved his sleeve to block it. Bang! Fang Yan's fist landed on Qinya Bing's wide sleeve. The sleeve was like an incomparably hard iron plate. Fang Yan blasted a big hole in the ironing board, but his body flew backward. Whoosh! After Fang Yan's body slid on the ground for a while, his head hit a huge rock. Until then, the momentum of his body was exhausted. Before anyone could react, Fang Yan got up from the ground. He didn't like to lie down because he felt that this posture was too ugly. So many fans were looking at him, so he had to work hard to maintain the style of a male god. The clothes on his chest were open, and the mountain wind whistled and slapped his strong and well-proportioned chest. Fang Yan stood as straight as a mountain, without a trace of timidity. Chiba Keiru looked at Fang Yan, who was striding toward him, and frowned slightly. His arm was also bleeding, which was a hole made by Fang Yan's claws. His fingers were sharper than a sharp knife, and they forcibly pierced through the skin and flesh, piercing through his arm. He originally wanted to kill Fang Yan with one blow and end the battle cleanly. But he didn't expect that it would be a life-and-death competition now. The one who persisted until the end would be the final winner. Moreover, an opponent who was not afraid of death was indeed a headache. Fang Yan's body started to sway. He looked like a drunkard who had just returned home. Even his eyes became hazy, as if he couldn't see the world in front of him clearly. His feet stepped on protruding stones several times and he almost fell. His body staggered forward a few steps and he barely maintained his posture. Fang Yan leaped up and threw a punch at Chiba Shinobu's head. His fist was like steel and his chi was like the Yangtze River. This punch completely subverted the principle and essence of Tai Chi, which used softness to overcome hardness. Using force against force, using tyranny against tyranny. This was what people in Jianghu called hard Tai Chi. Hard Tai Chi used force against force, while soft Tai Chi used little force to overcome great force. Chiba Keiru jumped up and kicked Fang Yan's body. Pa-la-la! Fang Yan's fist hit the tip of Chiba Keiru's foot. The fist energy collided with the sword energy, and the airflow collided, making a harsh explosion. Fang Yan's body fell and flew backward again. Chiba Keiru's body fell 3 steps back after landing. Bang! Fang Yan's body hit the big stone. Fang Yan shook his hand and stood up again. Using the cross step, he once again charged toward the Chiba shinobi. There were no fancy skills or complicated movements. It was just a fight of force, a fight of life. Bang! Fang Yan's body was blasted away again. After breaking several small trees in a row, he was stopped by a bigger tree. Fang Yan's throat was sweet, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Chiba Keiru's face was expressionless, but a trace of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chiba Keiru had been practicing swordsmanship for many years, and his internal force cultivation was indeed better than Fang Yan's. Fang Yan tidied his sweaty hair and struggled to get up again. I'm going to kill him. Fang Yingying was like a red-eyed bull, angrily rushing toward Chiba Keiru. He was going to kill him. Or be killed by him. Bang! A leather boot appeared and kicked him in the face, sending him flying back. Hero Fang, who was sprinting forward, was kicked in the stomach before he could even turn around. He tumbled back to his original position. "What are you doing, you crazy woman?" Fang Yingying roared at Yi Rou. It was the first time that he dared to speak to the violent woman like this. "If you don't go help, why don't you let us go?" Fang Haohan also stared at Yi Rou fiercely, his chest rising and falling. It seemed that he was about to explode. Watch. Watch carefully. This is his fight and he wants to fight fair and square. He doesn't want anyone to help him. If he needed help, he would have gone back to ask the old drunkard for help. Why would he need you two idiots to call back for help? Yi Rou's face was gloomy, and she clenched her fists tightly. "If he dies, I'll go challenge him. If I die, the old drunkard will go challenge him. If all the masters of our Fang family are dead, there are other heroes from Wuxia to challenge him. It's not your turn to die." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.